Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Certification of resolution of compliance. Motion, the closed meeting was conducted in conformity with the provisions of Virginia Freedom of Information Act as required by Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, and certified that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meetings requirements were discussed, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. It has been seconded. Vote, please. Okay, motion carried. Okay, we want to welcome everyone to our meeting tonight, and we're going to begin by welcoming Miss Renee Dial to the school board. This past Tuesday evening, she was voted in as the Newport District School Board Representative. Ms. Dial is a parent of 3 children in our school system and comes to us with a master's in physician assistant from Eastern Virginia Medical School. She has a bachelor's in science, biology, and psychology from Old Dominion University. And we believe Ms. Dial will be a great asset to our school board, and we look forward to working with her. So let's welcome Ms. Dial. Okay, I'm now going to ask our Vice Chair, Ms. Tynes, to lead us in the, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I have been told to make the announcement about the mask. Masks are required by the county and the county building. So if you do not have a mask on, we ask that you put a mask on. If you don't have one, you are asked to leave the building. The masks are required by the county and the county building. Now, at this time, I will ask Ms. Tynes to open us with the pledge and moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to begin with special presentations, and we have recognition of Mrs. Victoria Hewlick.
Oh, there's Vicky.
Can I take this off to speak? Okay. All right. Ms. Hewlick, if you wouldn't mind, would you please stand up here while I talk about you? Okay. When Vicki decided to run for the school board, there were a lot of changes taking place in the division. Wight County Schools had welcomed a new superintendent, Dr. Thornton, to the helm in July of 2015. In November, Vicki won election to the Newport District seat on the school board, where she served until August of 2021. During her 6 years on the board, she was elected chairman for 2 of those 6 years. During her tenure, she facilitated a revamping of the CTE program, construction and renovations of facilities, including the land lab and barn at Windsor Elementary, and a new Hardy Elementary School, which is in the works. She also supported the implementation of coding in elementary schools and an emphasis on STEM in all schools. Vicki has been an advocate for the Newport District and for Isle of Wight County Schools. Regarding her time on the board, Dr. Thornton shared, she accepted her responsibility as a board member and had high expectations for me and the division. If we fell short, She made sure I knew about it. I always respected her and appreciated the accountability she brought as a board member. Vicki, thank you for your tireless service to Isle of Wight County Schools, and we would also like to thank your family for sharing you for 6 years. We wish you all of the best in your new home and your new ventures, and we have a beautiful plaque made in the Smithville High School Makerspace that says, Isle of Wight County School Board recognizes Vicki Hulick in appreciation for being a dedicated public servant and for doing what's best for all children. Newport District 2016 to 2021. So I want to hand that over to you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you, Vicki.
Ms. Hulick, I want to also thank you for your years of dedication, your hard work, your commitment to the school board, our division, our school community. Your passion and your desire to do what was right for our children was evident throughout the time you served, and we do thank you.
Thank you. It was a joy working with all of you, and some of the best times. So thank you so much, and I respect all of you, including Ms. Dial, who took over, and I appreciate everything I know you're going to do in the future.
And Mrs. Hulick, Vicki, I had an opportunity to work with you the last, what? Well, we're 2 years. It's about 2, yes. We're going to say 2 years. And when I finish the remaining 2 years, it'll give you time to consider to come back, okay? And I'm very serious about that because you did an excellent job, and you were, and you know, you helped this team grow to a positive team. So please consider coming back in 2 years, okay? Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is emerging leaders.
Madam Chair, Dr. Thornton, Board. So last month you heard from one of our high school emerging leaders, but we didn't get a chance to hear from one of our middle school. And so we're going to hear from Charlie Miller and his father today.
Well, that's Charlie.
So,
We come as a Charlie and Charlie team. I just wanted to thank the board for this program. It was absolutely fantastic. Initially, when I received the information about the program, I totally took it as a respin on summer school. I couldn't have been any more wrong. What he took from the program, what I saw as he developed, he initially was standoffish and wasn't interested in the program, no matter how I pitched it. But I saw him starting day one. By day two, he had both feet in up to his knees, and he was all in. And I appreciate everybody's work with him and with the other students. As I toured around for their last assembly and saw what those students had did and the amount of passion that they put into their work, I was touched. I was moved by hearing those kids and hearing the confidence that they all came out. This is my son, Charlie. He has a little bit that he would like to say about the program himself.
Good evening, board members, faculty, and parents. My name is Charles Stephen Miller. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm here to tell you about the amazing experience that I've had at this summer's Emerging Leaders program. This program has helped me reconnect with old friends as well as make new ones. It has also helped me develop collaboration and it's taken away my stage fright. I've also been exploring my creativity, which has allowed me to focus on my strengths. I'm here in hopes that others get to have the same experiences for years to come. My favorite parts were the field trips and being able to stand in front of all of you without stage fright. Any questions?
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, next on the agenda is the Capital Improvement Plan public input. So at this time, do we have anyone signed up? we will move next to the agenda, which is the request to speak.
In accordance to policy BDDH-E, presentations of information on any subject will be concluded at the discretion of the board. No person will be recognized to speak more than once. Citizens scheduled on the agenda to speak will be permitted 5 minutes maximum time for their presentation. Delegations are requested to limit their speakers to 2. A maximum of 30 minutes will be designated for public comments. Persons speaking are asked to be specific, state the issues for the board's consideration, and attach a copy of your prepared remarks. If you have prepared remarks, they should be given to the board clerk. Please do not approach the board members. The school board requests that speakers refrain from referring to specific individuals and that any matter related to a specific student or individual be discussed in a closed meeting. Speakers are addressing the school board and will face the board while at the podium and not interact with members of the audience. First, we have Ms. Swartz.
So I've been here before. Tonight I'm going to speak about the Read Woke challenge that has come up at Smithfield High School. First of all, I brought one of the books that we're going to talk about, The Hate You Give. I just want to point out I've started the book, and what I have listed here in colors are pages that are marked with profanity just in the beginning. That's what I've gotten through so far. So I'm here tonight to discuss the Read Woke challenge at Smithfield High School. Are any of you aware of the challenge? And if you are, when have you become aware of it? I had no idea that this became effect at the high school in November of 2020. 3 of the books that are on the challenge right now are in the top 20, are in the top 10 of the 2020 of the American Library Association of Schools of University of the most challenged books of 2020. I've got that here if any of you would like that. Let's see. Some of these books have a lot of sexual content that are deemed appropriate to me in the school system setting. They talk about gangbangs, tapping each other down the line. One shared a story of taking naked selfies of one another and sharing them by text. We all are aware that this is a felony of child pornography when under the age of 18. It's in the school policies that a lot of us just signed again this week with our students. And I'm understanding that this is announced frequently in the middle and high school announcements. There's talk of drugs, pill popping, weed, and more. We have a lot of cop hate, and we have school resource officers in our schools, and we just celebrated honoring Deputy Gwatney retirement in the June school board meeting. So I find that inappropriate. These books do not promote unity, they promote further divide. The one book in particular that I have a problem with that I started to read myself, so I would know about it, was The Hate You Give. It's in the top 10, and it is number 10 on the book that should not be in schools. It became a movie, and if you wanted to come in here and read a section, which is what I was going to do tonight, but I figured I would be hauled off maybe by them if I started to read it because it's that inappropriate. So I won't read it. I'll just tell you about it. The book contains 89 F words in it. It says it 89 times along with a lot of B, S, and H. In the movie, they gave it a PG-13 rating, and they had to get special permission for that to be a PG-13. To get special permission, you need to have it one word of an F word in it. This book contains it 89 times, and it's in our schools. So if it was in our schools and it was a movie made like that in our school system, it would be an R-rated movie, but it's in our schools. I don't find that appropriate at all, and I don't think either of you guys would either. In a recent letter to Dr. Thornton, he saw nothing wrong with this. He compared this book to Catcher in Rye and Huckleberry Finn. Few difference of these books is that they were written for adults at the time they were written, unlike the Read Woke Challenge. The Read Woke Challenge was written towards teens, and it continues to take from them what some people think is okay, which is their childhood. To the critics that state that our kids see this and participate with this stuff already, and that we should expect this in public schools, I don't see it that way. They say that we should send them to private school or homeschool for my student. That's not an answer as an alternative to having these books in our schools. They are still highly inappropriate, and we should be guiding our children better than that. They are still our children. If my child walked up to me and said the F word once, twice, or 89 times, I'd have a problem with it. And if you said it in the school system, I'm pretty sure I'd get a phone call from the school. I'm going to leave you with one thing that the writer of Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn himself said. He wrote, "I'm greatly troubled by what you say that I wrote about Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn for adults. I wrote it for adults exclusively, and it always distressed me when I find that boys and girls have been allowed to have access to them. The mind that becomes soiled in youth can never again be washed clean." Thank you.
Ms. Swartz?
Would any of you guys like the challenge?
Okay, next we have Ms. Jennifer Morgan.
Through the Freedom of Information Act, we have learned Ms. Jones tried to hire Randolph Carter, a member of the Black Panther Party, as a consultant for equity training. While back in the spring he wasn't able to provide services, I do not know if he is being contracted for any future date. We've also learned that all training, equity plans, and costs had to be submitted for the school board's approval. Did any of you ever question any of this training or the cost? Did any of you question Mr. Carter's credentials, or were you all okay with his involvement in a violent racist hate group? Also in these same emails, Ms. Jones indicates to Carter she was being questioned about how an equity audit can be done confidentially. Who directed this, and what was to be kept confidential? Through FOIA, we have also obtained a copy of your equity plan. Some of this plan includes creating an equity and community agreement. What is this? What makes up this agreement? Where can I find this agreement on the school's website? There is also an equity diversity committee. Who and how many serve on this committee? How are people appointed to this committee? What is the goal of this committee? And where is this on your website? This plan also requires teachers to acknowledge and heal the impact of their daily implicit biases. How is this measured? Who's judging daily implicit bias? Is there a form they fill out every day? What if a teacher genuinely feels they treat every child equal and without bias? Do you call them liars? But my big concern is the one-on-one interviews with students and the 20 focus groups that are to be conducted according to this plan. How are students chosen? Will parents be notified their child is chosen to be interviewed? What are the questions that will be asked of each student in this interview? What grade levels will be included? Will these students and focus groups truly be diverse? Who will be asked to serve on the focus groups? Parents, students, teachers, general public? Where can taxpayers find the results of all of this? After spending several $100,000 on equity plans and training so far, not including Ms. Jones's annual salary, why did you solicit a quote for more training in June from consultants at Solution Tree with a price tag of over $342,000? If we have an equity coordinator, why are we pouring money into other people coming in to do it? This is irresponsible and misuse of taxpayer funds. Have any of you researched and questioned any of this? One last thing, part of this training included a statement that children living in a two-parent home are privileged. This is disgusting to make anyone think that because they live in a two-parent home, they are privileged. They are blessed, not privileged. And how can you judge a one-parent home as non-privileged and inferior? That child might be better off in that home. This is one example of the potential to warp the minds of these kids and cause further division. If a student isn't being abused, mistreated, or neglected in any way, then who are you to judge their home life? The school's job is to educate, period.
Volpe Boykin, Carsville District. And since she brought up money, I got a suggestion. You spend our money and we want to know on what now. The county's put in a system by Miss Stephanie Humphreys, who is more than happy to help you all put in a like system so that any of us can go in, see what you're writing checks for, and to who and how much. It's our money. You spend 2/3 of the county's budget. We want that system. And I've got a suggestion for the Board of Supervisors to give you guys 60 or 90 days to implement the system, or you get no more taxpayer money until it's implemented. You say you want transparency? Let us see where the money's coming from, where it's going. Let us see how $340,000 is being spent and some other things. And I think you have no excuse, since Miss Humphreys is willing to help you put it in, not to have it. Some other news for the people in the Newport district, and they can check the dates, but Miss Hewitt's resignation, it would appear that she closed on her house June 22nd, that she resigned from the school board August 6th, which, if my numbers are correct, is one day outside of the time limit that would have allowed the citizens of the Newport district to have that space on the ballot for them to vote who represents them. Now, you can say it was coincidence, you can say what you want, but after 40 years as a detective, to me, it smells really bad. One other thing on equity and inclusion. Sometimes I disagree with them, but I really think the Smithfield Times hit it on the head when they printed this. The equity movement, while often admirable in its intent, goes too far with telling people how to feel. That might have its place in politics, churches, and even some college classrooms. But K-12 has its hands full in our view, teaching kids to read, write, solve math problems, and preparing them for success in college and the workforce. But back to the money. You have no reason, no excuse. You've got somebody willing to help you do the work. The only reason you wouldn't put a system in where we can see who you're writing checks to and what those checks are for, just like the Board of Supervisors has implemented, is if you're hiding something. So if you're not hiding anything, I expect in about 60 or 90 days to be able to go on your website and see where you've been spending my money. And something I wasn't plan to speak on. Ms. Schwartz, the books, and I have no reason to think that what she's saying is not true. If you all have approved this to be read by students, it is dereliction of your duty. It is disgusting.
1 minute.
And I know that I'm old, but if I'd have brought a book like that into any school I went to, even as a senior in Windsor, I'd have been suspended at least. So thank you, and if you don't look back into these books and pull those out, you're as disgusting as the people that wrote them. Thank you.
Jason Marsh, Windsor District. So they've already beat up the Read Woke Challenge pretty good. These 3 books, like they've already said, were listed as 3 of the top 10 most banned and challenged books of 2020 by the American Library Association. I wrote a letter on August 29th pointing this out. These books promote drug use, group sex, gang violence, racial stereotypes, and an anti-cop sentiment. Mr. Thornton's response to my letter said that and this is a quote, reading these books exposes them to different cultures, and it's just as important as math and science based on feedback from our business partners. I'll say it again. Your quote, exposing kids to these books is just as important as math and science based on feedback from our business partners. Who are the business partners? That's what I want to know. And when did public schools become a business? Mr. Thornton, I thank you. I thank you for validating that your self-serving business endeavors have become such an influence on our schools. I want you to hear it from my words, from my mouth first. I want you fired. It's unacceptable. Ms. Perkins, you represent Windsor. That's my district. I've asked you several questions in emails. I asked you twice if you approve this. You did not respond. I'm asking you now in public. Do you approve of the books in the Read Woke Challenge? Ms. Carr, I asked you the same question twice via email. No response. At least Mr. Thornton has the gumption to respond. Do you approve of the Read Woke Challenge books? It's a yes or no question. And I understand you're trying to appease everyone. And I understand you're trying to keep your seat. But the public deserves to know where you stand on this material. I'd like an answer. Ms. Perkins, do you have to ask permission from the chair to speak? Because I'd like an answer. Do you approve? Ms. Carr, do you approve?
Our policy is we don't respond to public comments.
Very well. I'll look forward to getting a response in writing.
Miss McClellan. Sorry, got it right. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Ulrika McClellan. I live in Smithfield, and I have 2 children in the Isle of Wight School District. And I'd like to talk to you about the atrocious bus situation we've all been experiencing this week. Daily bus transfer to and from school is necessary for many students, and we, as working parents, count on this tax-funded service. In these uncertain times, a reliable, timely, and safe means of transportation greatly reduces anxiety and stress in children and parents alike. I understand the difficulty in hiring qualified bus drivers. Individuals with a CDL and a clean record are highly sought after, and bus drivers are needed in school districts all over Virginia. However, I am failing to understand why Isle of Wight is not trying harder to attract candidates by offering higher salaries and perhaps bonuses for those who are running the extra routes where drivers and buses are not available. School bus drivers, just like our teachers, are underappreciated and underpaid. They ensure our children are safe in a safe, clean environment so they can focus on learning and personal growth. Unlike the administration, none of those groups got a raise last year. In my opinion, the budget for this school year needs to be reviewed and funds need to be shifted to cover the essentials. Why are you spending money on woke training for teachers and allocate funds for equity plans when you can't even get our kids to school on time? Please focus on providing schools and students with the core elements that allow them to succeed before you focus on implementing what you and Dr. Thornton deem as culturally relevant. Why should my child suffer by losing valuable instruction time in the morning and then spend an additional hour after dismissal sitting in the auditorium with several other children while waiting for her bus to become available? It is not acceptable to put responsibility for the student's timely and reliable commute to and from school back on us working parents. An employer's patience for tardiness only goes so far. You, as a school board, need to step up and do what is right for students and parents. Thank you.
Miss Crystal Harris. Crystal Harris. Miss Vanderbrake.
Hello. So I wanted to go over, Dr. Thornton, I did not talk to one person that could verify your story from the last meeting about using equity observation or rising advanced study diplomas to 70%. Zero. The board and Thornton have stated that equity training will not be passed down to students. It's for staff only. But in Dr. Thornton's Facebook video, he states, need to be cautious about diving too deeply into societal and political work and issues, but there will be times these will intersect with K through 12 education. The board has stated these books on equity and anti-racism will not be encouraged in classrooms for students to read, yet online the schools have a woke reading challenge. I find it interesting that equity training is for staff only and state on a slide that white is a privilege, and to interrupt that privilege, one must advocate with BIPOC. Then online for your woke reading list, it states read woke as a movement. You stated that it's not all about being fully accredited. At least now we can clearly see your views on accreditation by your statements and by your history at Mecklenburg. Taking a fully accredited school district with 2 blue ribbons and leaving only 1 school accredited and 0 blue ribbons by the time you left. I also find it interesting that your equity slide used in last month's school board meeting that the public can see is not the slide I received in the equity training packets. There are 0 case studies that show any correlation with implicit bias, equity training, and achievement gaps. 0. There's none out there. I spent hours searching. Ms. Perkins, out of numerous emails asking about feedback on better implementing equity plans and explanation for certain programs or policies, you have not emailed me back one time. How are you effectively voting for your Windsor district without communicating with them? Ms. Carr is the only one that's ever attempted to find out answers, and you only have one person up there emailing people back and writing letters and responses. How do you find out how to vote? You have a director comparing Windsor traffic stop to Minneapolis. You have a principal that shares the status, I don't believe that on a whole teachers are less racist than cops. I think we don't carry guns and that our damage is done quieter and over the space of years. You have a superintendent that lies. You have board members that don't care and look around the room to see how to vote. You have another board member that asks, why are you doing this when a member voted differently than another? One telling her that she needs to vote with everyone else and be unified. From every direction, this administration is coming apart. I'm not saying, after meeting Ms. Cox and much research, that I do not agree with the equity program. I do not agree with some aspects of it, and I'm working to change it and reviewing every piece of material I can to protect my child from the school. I am just asking for honesty. Do not sit up here and deny that certain views and politics are not being pushed into our children's curriculum. Stop lying, take accountability, and prove me wrong, because I would love for you to prove me wrong. I bring it on. I would love for you to show me some statistics, some case studies. Show me something where I'm wrong. I have documents to back up everything that I said tonight. Do you? Send me documents. Send me what you got, because I've got everything that shows up. Everything that I said on here is completely true. And I have not received anything from anybody stating otherwise.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Albert Burkhardt, Newport District. When I left the house this afternoon to come over here, I Googled the school board. I noticed you had 4 members. And so I came here tonight to see who the new member was. And I came here for one reason only, well, besides to be entertained, but that's okay. But to see who the new school board member was, and you did that. And Ms. Dow, you introduced yourself, and I appreciate that. And that was the reason I asked to speak tonight. Thank you.
Mr. DeGraw?
Hey, Madam Chair, members of the board, my name's Herb DeGraw from the Hardy District. My concern is, in this statement for the board tonight, is the violation of IWCS policies BDDH and KD, public participation at school board meetings by you, our IWCS board, but mainly Chairperson Carr, you, at the 12 August board meeting. Before I get started though on my presentation about the 12th, I am bringing to your attention IWCS policies BDDH and KD revised on the 10th of June 2021 that allows, by these 2 policies, 2 public comment policies that state the following. No one is allowed to make any additional presentation until everyone who wishes to speak has an opportunity to make an initial presentation. My second concern will be about the SOQ report. So will these policies, BDH and KD, be adhered to tonight with council present? Maybe I should suggest you take a recess at some point and discuss it with him to make sure you don't violate the policy again. At the August 12th board meeting, during the request to speak or public comment section of the agenda, the board clerk stated, Madam Chair, the maximum time of 30 minutes has finished, but we still have 18 people in the sheet to speak. Then Chair Carr read from her computer, not her school board issued iPad, the following. Our policy, it has been like this, not just now, it has been like this. Policy states a maximum of 30 minutes will be designated for public comment. In order to extend the time, a motion will need to be made and passed. So is there a motion to extend the time so we can hear the remainder of the speakers? No board member said anything at this time. Chair Carr continued to read from her computer and says, I would like to make a motion to extend the 30 minutes designated for public comment to give the remaining speakers 2 minutes maximum time for their participation. Madam Chair, I ask you to provide your written responses to all my questions that I am posing. Why did you and the other IWCS board members deliberately violate board policies BDH and KD public participation that was revised on the 10th of June 2021, which does not stipulate any maximum time limit for public comment? The reason I say this is because the board voted unanimously to delete the section of the policy that stated a reasonable time period as determined by the school board will be allocated at each regular meeting for community members to present matters of concern. In other words, the board has no authority to set the public comment maximum time limit or vote to limit the speaker's time whatsoever, because the public comment time limit is endless by virtue of your policy not saying anything. Madam Chair, will you preserve the information on your computer that you read from during the IWCS board meeting on the 12th of August in regards to your statements about public comment, since it's an electronic record or document that's a public record and has to be preserved, not destroyed? Why did the board members illegally vote twice on the 12th of August board meeting to limit the time of public comment for certain speakers? Madam Chair, on 12 August, what policy or exhibit were you reading from or referring to when you stated, quote, in order to extend the time of motion we made and passed, since that is not found in either IWCS board policy approved, that is BDDH or KD, or the exhibits BDDH-E or KD-E. Each IWCS board member except Ms. Tynes was present during 2018 when the board deleted the 30-minute time limit for public comment, and there was even an article in the Smithfield Times dated December the 12th titled School Policy Changes Question that stated the new policy, more flexible than the old, lets the school board decide how long public comments can go along as deemed appropriate rather than capped at 30 minutes. Knowing the 30-minute time limit had been deleted from the policy, why did the board and clerk say there was still a 30-minute time limit? Was it to limit the number of speakers and their comments so they wouldn't be heard by you? Madam Chair, you've stated before, what good is policy we do not follow it? And Ms. Perkins has stated If we, the school board, don't follow the law, we're asking for a lawsuit, and we're not following the law, we're not doing our job. With those statements said by elected board members, Madam Chair, did you and other board members do your jobs and follow your own IWCS board policies and the law at the IWCS board meeting on August the 12th during the public comment section? Ms. Carr, as board chair, I hope you take the time to read over my statement and answer all my questions, and also attend the 16th September Board of Supervisors meeting, and y'all go with her to explain why you violated your own policies on the 12th of August, and let the Board of Supervisors look you in the eye and you explain to them why you violated the policies. Thank you very much.
Martha Jackson.
Martha Evans Jackson, Hardy District, 511A Cedar Street in Smithfield, Virginia. First, I want to say thank you to the Smithfield High School Representative Neely Harris and to the Windsor High School Representative Ms. Kylie Sharp for willingly serving on as school board liaisons. Many have repeated over and over that you don't want a program that teaches your children morals. You are 100% correct. That is a parent's job. But just as you are passionate about teaching morals, what about being equally as passionate about your children learning about the many atrocities that Black, brown, and others suffer and continue to suffer? Will you teach your children? I suggest you're already teaching by spewing hateful rhetoric about the equity director. What we do is more important than what we say or believe. Do you tell your children to act one way at home and another at school, social functions, or sporting events? I worked in 2 school settings for 41 years, where children would often come to my desk. I would ask them a question, usually about attendance. They would answer honestly and look directly in my eyes and say, "But my mom and daddy told me to say thus and so." Not an isolated incident. Student, I'm leaving early to go on a trip. Usually that happened on a Friday. Parents come in, "May I pick up John, David, and Sue?" They have doctor's appointments. I could go on. We can take lessons from our honest children. Many of you that object to the equity program, do you even have children in all of Wight County Schools? Do you complain about the other subject areas, math, reading, science? Why not, with permission from your child's school, sit in on an equity lesson so that you can see without bias what your children are learning? Let's move through fear, find out what connects us so that we can see and make our communities better. If you don't want this for yourselves, let's at least do it for our children. We cannot stop our unconscious biases, but we can counteract or mitigate them with effort to overcome. We want to live and work so our communities will be places for all to be proud to live in. The equity program serves as a vehicle for blinded eyes to see and closed ear to hear the plight of marginalized history. It would be a catastrophe not to do so. I urge you, Olive Wight County School Board, to wholeheartedly support this program. Welcome, Mrs. Dial.
Okay, Ms. Card, I mean, that's everybody, the last person on here has already spoke, so. And 30 minutes.
Okay, next on the agenda is member committee reports and information? Does anybody have any committee reports? Okay.
No, I haven't attended it. I think I did get some information from the WHRO that that they added me to their list.
Okay.
And I think that their next meeting will be October.
Okay. And I don't have a committee report, and I'll save my comments on the woke challenge for the end of the meeting, school board comments. But I would like to mention that August the 27th was the Wight County School Convocation, where teachers and staff and administrators meet to bring in the new year, and it was absolutely heartwarming and energizing. There was so much excitement and enthusiasm in the air. The rebooting videos shown by each school demonstrated such spirit and teamwork. And then there was a speaker, Mr. Larry Bell. He did such a good job emphasizing the importance of student-teacher relationships and high expectations for all students. The convocation ended with great music from a newly created band uncovering talent, most of which came from central office, and it was such a great kickoff for this new school year. I visited our 4 schools on the southern end of the county the first day of school, and seeing all the smiles and feeling the excitement was such a great experience. This year has begun with some challenges, but at the same time, we can't ignore the positives, and there are lots of positives. Okay?
May I say something?
Sure.
Just as Madam Chair said, we normally make our comments at the end, but I want to say this while we have the full audience here tonight. I would like to thank all of the bus drivers for Wight County Public Schools, what you have done in the last few days. It's not just you, you're not out there by yourself. It's not just our transportation department. It's a regional thing, it's a state thing, it's a nationwide thing. But I would like to thank them. Parents, the only thing we ask is just to work with us, and we will get these things sorted out. I would also like to thank the cafeteria workers. It's always a whole lot when the students come back to school, especially the high school students, and middle school, because they like to be picky about what they're going to eat. But if you can get them all through the cafeteria and back in class on time, that is a reward within itself. Thank you very much for what you are doing also for Wight County Schools, okay? It's not that we're forgetting you, because our cafeteria workers, they work with the private contractor, but we are still thankful for what you're doing. And Mr. Livingston, we thank you. I'm thankful for what you're doing as well with your transportation department. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the financial presentations.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Thornton. Welcome, Ms. Dial. Congratulations. Let me just start with the check register that was attached to your agenda. I was a little concerned with what the gentleman said about our financials. I do try to do my job with integrity, transparency. I'm not a perfect person, and it's certainly not a perfect system. But your financials, your check registers every month, they are online, and they're accessible. I think that's important to know, because as with a public board, public funds, it is the public monies, and they should certainly see what checks are cut every month. So your check registers are online. So let me start with that. Are there any questions on the check register or any parts of the check register?
Well, I thought it would be good for an explanation on the American Reading Company assessment subscription and data analysis software. And then that was $69,000, and
Yes.
then the Renaissance Learning Online instructional tools.
Okay.
I think Susan might be able to help us understand what both are used for and why we need them, and this amount is for the whole year, correct?
Yes.
And the
Thank you.
difference between the two, because I think the ARC is just reading, but the Renaissance is reading and math.
Yes, correct. So for the ARC materials, that is the school pace online version that we are using. So it's
how we assess our students, and we record the data about their reading progress online. So it's the tool, it's the online tool that goes with American Reading Company. Any other questions
Well,
about
the
that?
Renaissance, so is the
Okay, so-
Renaissance just assessment, or is it actually?
Yes,
some
so
learning
that's
as
for
well?
STAR 360, and that is a math and reading assessment. It's a universal screener, so it screens our students and it tells us strengths and weaknesses of those students. For math, that is the screener that we're using, obviously. We don't have another screener for math, that is the one that we use. And it helps us to group students, it tiers our students, so we know, are you a tier 1, 2, or 3 student, and it helps us to know which students need more support. For the reading, we do use the reading as well. And again, we just use that as another measure for students. If we have concerns about their reading, again, we can go and look what are their weaknesses. It also it helps us place them in Freckle, which is something we're going to be using this year for students who need Tier 2 and Tier 3 support. The STAR will align with Freckle, and it gives them a starting place in Freckle. So that's why we use those. And we give STAR 3 times a year.
So you see where the two tools complement each other.
Oh, well, so when we're using School Pace with American Reading Company, that is our daily monitoring of goals and progress on those goals in reading. So that's every single day we're using that. The STAR 360 reading is 3 times a year, so it's a point-in-time assessment. And yes, it does very much align because we're using IRLA and School Pace daily, and then we're seeing what is the measure with STAR 360. So it does align. If it's not, then we need to look and see, well, what's going on. So it's just another measure and time of that student's progress.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have another question, Steve. The TransFinder Corporation, that was the 7,000 school bus tracking and routing solutions. And I know last year we talked about it. This year we're actually implementing it. Is that correct?
Lee, is Lee close by? Yes, we are. I can't speak to the specifics of it. When Lee does his report, I don't know if you're prepared or if you want to ask him any specific questions.
Okay. I knew that was 7,000, so he's going to talk about that.
Yes.
And then the check expenses that are listed under the Bank of America, there was a lot of listings on the professional development, staff development, training, and travel and training.
Correct.
So could you help us understand why one's called staff development, one's called professional development?
It's my understanding that various categories were just created with different descriptions at different times, and I don't believe there's an intent to have a difference between them.
So they're all,
Ultimately, that's correct.
Okay.
So I think the best suggestion, and Dr. Thornton had asked that we go through each one, and if you look at the brief description of each of those, there's really no difference between what you had said, professional development or travel and training. They're all towards professional development. I could ask if there's any historic that in my office, if perhaps they talked about mileage as being one, maybe perhaps they talked about overnight travel as being another category. But it's my understanding that no. Over time, they've just developed those descriptions and they're not necessarily consistent.
did anybody else have any questions?
Madam Chair and board members, just for clarification, for your purposes, as you know, under financials and board docs, we have a report on large ticket items, facility usage, financial reports, and the entire check register. It's also under the consent agenda, and this is on board docs for you and the public to see every single month. And we use the exact same system the county uses called Munis.
So, I mean, everything is for the public to see. In fact,
Yeah.
I even went on this past week as a citizen would go on, not as a board member.
Right.
So,
As did I with what the gentleman had said. I got a little concerned, so I went on without necessarily logging into the back end, just as the person from the public, and it is there, yes. Certainly you have to know we're on our website to find it. We could do links to everything we do, and that becomes the challenge. We do so much, what do you highlight? So if there's ever any questions, I would encourage people to call us or ask the question. Then secondly, I'll move on from your check register. Secondly, your August, closing out August was listed. We are literally 1% spent more of your budget this time of year compared to last time of year this time, which didn't surprise me because we were not doing this. What we're doing now, we were not doing this time last year to this extent. So we're literally 15% into your budget. So we're just getting started. Are there any questions on the financial reports? And that's really all I have, if there's no other questions. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. Madam Chair, school board members, support services and operations full report. All right. Oh, my phone. Sorry. Thank you, Dan. First, I want to step right into the division survey manager. This is the overall survey manager for the division when it comes to school audits, safety audits, and everything else that the state of Virginia requires you to have. This is just stating on August 31st, it's mandatory that every division signs off that we have completed everything in full. That system has been checked off and has been signed off. We have completed all the school safety audits and everything for this school year. This is just to inform you that there was a update for the new Hardy Elementary School. The project review meeting for the GMP, the final guaranteed maximum price. Now that occurred on Wednesday, September 1st, 2021 at 9:30 a.m. at the school board office conference room. Just want to let you know that we actually went through that, and we have a small presentation after this. Next, I want to bring to your attention the auction items. The auction items, we have 4 cars and 1 van for actually auction. And just to let you know, we have the make, model, and exactly the mileage for these vehicles. The 4 vehicles is an auction item. Age is one of the factors, condition, the engine, and most times it's the vehicle is going to cost more to repair than the actual vehicle is worth. At this time, we've pinpointed 4 cars and 1 van for that, so those are the ones that will be going for auction. I have more details if those details are needed. All right. Next, Madam Chair, if there are no questions concerning the support services operation full report, the 15.2 New Hardy Elementary School, I want to introduce a couple of gentlemen here. From MB Con Construction, Bill Cram, the Executive Vice President, Chris Bilbo, the Project Director. From Heartland Construction, I want to introduce Eric Strickler. And from RRMM Architects, I want to introduce Jeff Harris to come up and talk a little bit more.
And Madam Chair, as they come up, I'd also like to recognize, I believe we have Dick Rice here tonight from the Board of Supervisors and Tom Durg from the Planning Commission, who both served on our committee throughout this entire process, going through the today's guaranteed maximum price. And so we thank them for serving on that committee. And I also see Mr. Jefferson here tonight, too.
Problem with the drive. School board presentation. This one right here? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Thornton, members of the Board of Administration. Thanks for having us here tonight. We're excited to bring this news to you. There's been a lot of effort put into this. Mr. Coleman kindly introduced everybody. There's one more, Jim Thornton, one of our consultants, is sitting in the back there. You can recognize him with the Hokie mask on, as he's usually wearing. Who did I say? Jim Thornton, excuse me, Mr. Ruhlman. Obviously, I have stage fright like that young man that just left here. I'm going to...
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to ask Jeff Harris to lead us off, bring you up to speed a little bit on the design. So Jeff, I'll let you start.
I'm sure most of you guys have seen the site plan. You're very familiar with the site. What you see in front of you is the current Hardy Elementary School site with the new building located right in the center of it. It's situated, if you're facing the site, it's to the right-hand side and sits a little bit behind the existing building. The reason for selecting this location is to allow the existing building to remain operational while the new building is being constructed. So one of the things that you guys did to make this possible at the county, with the county's help, is to purchase additional property that freed up a little bit more room to make it to make this solution work. You can see on the, well, I wish I had a pointer. So we bring cars and buses in the lower right-hand portion of the site. Oh, there we go. Can we back up?
Sure. Yeah, it's there. It's just very light.
Can we use the mouse? I'll try and use the mouse.
I don't think you'll be able to see the mouse. Oh, there you can.
So we have cars enter right here. Decent stack lane for parents to come in, drop off where this the pointer is located. That's the main entrance to the new school. Parents drop off and exit right here in the center of the site. Plenty of available parking for staff and visitors. We maintain a service drive access back here to where the kitchen and mechanical rooms are located. And buses enter on the opposite side of the site. So we've maintained good separation and security, safety between vehicular cars and buses. You can see all the playgrounds located immediately adjacent to each of the grade houses. But it fits nicely in the site. One of the other elements I want to point out is the elevated water storage tank up here in the tucked in the back corner of the site. There was potential discussion for maintaining an existing wing of the existing Hardy building to serve as some community function, possibly in the future. If that was to be maintained, you can see its location. We also provide a separate drive and parking. That has yet to be determined if we're going to keep that. Probably won't, but in any event, we needed to go through the conditional use permit application process to make sure that it would be possible if you guys decide there's a good purpose for that addition, or that existing addition, previous addition, sorry. This is the floor plan of the new Hardy Elementary School. Right here is the main entrance. Flanked on this side is administration and clinic and guidance on this side. There's a main street that separates the more public side of the house on the right-hand side from the more private side, or the grade houses on the left-hand side. Media center centrally located, easily accessible from each of the grade houses. We've got kindergarten and pre-K extends directly straight out to the left-hand side. Second grade is located at the bottom. First grade is at the top. I should mention that the site was planned to accommodate future additions if you felt like there was a need to expand the school in the future. So we did plan for that with site amenities and making sure that utilities were kept outside of that potential expanded footprint. This is the second floor. We have fourth grade that stacks over second grade cleanly, and then third grade stacks over top of fifth grade. We've got project-based learning space located within each house. It's centrally located and easily accessible for each of the students and staff within that grade house. On either side of the media center, you can see the media center. This is the upper portion of the media center right here in the center in white. And we have learning stairs that flank each side going down, and it provides a nice presentation or collaboration space for staff and students. So do you have any questions about the floor plan design and the way it's laid out? Okay. This is an interior rendering of what that main street will look like. You're looking at the main entrance in the background. Coming towards you, headed towards the gymnasium. On the left-hand side is the cafeteria, which also includes a stage for evening performances. And on the right-hand side, some transparency and some glass that looks into the media center. This is what a typical classroom is going to look like. Each grade house kind of has a predominant accent color. In this particular rendering, orange is the primary accent for that particular grade house. But you can see the furniture and flexible arrangement that some of the furniture you guys have already purchased will go into this building and will work very well for different arrangements that teachers might want to do on a daily basis. So part of this effort, one of the advantages of the CM at Risk process is the ability to see pricing along the way. We're in the middle of a very difficult construction market because we had the contractor on board early on in the process. They're able to provide estimates along the way. This gives you the advantage of kind of knowing where you stand and not waiting till the very end. And when you receive prices on bid days, you might find out that you're over budget, and now you've got sticker shock and you need to scramble and figure out how to move forward. This process has allowed us to address those types of issues along the way. So the committee that's been assembled this entire time, we've gone through VE efforts to try and minimize costs wherever possible, taking advantage of those things that we can make changes to the design and to the building without impacting the quality. So here are some of the recommendations that were made. We tried to limit the use of metal panel and use more brick and masonry because at this point, brick is cheaper than metal. It didn't used to be that way.
That was my question.
So you can see here we did have some metal panel accents around the facade originally. And at the end of the day, we removed most of those and went with an accent brick. Still gives you the same effect, but it's you know, financially, it's a better situation, better move to go this route. So you can, yes, ma'am.
Finish your sentence and then I ask my question.
I was just going to tell you that even making the change from metal to brick, it's still a great looking elevation. It doesn't really impact the look of the school, but it is more cost effective.
Okay, where you're going to replace the metal for the brick, it's going to be the same color brick that you're going to have located in the exterior. All of the brick are going to be the same color.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I didn't know if you were going to do a lighter brick or you were going to replace the metal or not, but it's all going to be the same.
So we started with a darker chocolate color brick as an accent, and we just kept that same color accent brick where we replaced it with the metal.
Okay.
Or in place of the
Thank
metal.
you.
So at the front entrance, this is what the design looked like originally. We have a very inviting entrance, something that looks modern and fresh. We did have a canopy that extended over a little bit beyond where it needed to. So the committee felt like one of the things we needed to do to be fiscally responsible is remove what's indicated in red. There are some metal accents around the entrance that we did feel like were important to maintain, but again, we've minimized it tremendously. So after we removed that extra piece of the canopy, that's what the front entrance will look like moving forward. Still, it's a great looking entrance, nice curb appeal.
I like it better. I can see it better. I like that. I like the second entrance better. It looks better.
Good. Well, that's where it's headed.
Okay.
And I'll turn it back over to Mr. Cram. I should ask, do you guys have any questions about some of the images and renderings?
Thank you, Jeff. The committee also felt the finished elevation was a better-looking elevation, so we have consensus, I think, between the meeting tonight. One of my jobs is to bring the news of cost to our clients. And back in April, we made a presentation to the committee, and I'm going to just hit a few of the highlights for you tonight. you can tell by my age, I've been doing this a long time. I have never seen a construction inflation market like we're seeing now. The closest I've saw to it was in the late 1970s when we had extremely high inflation. A few of the statistics are up there on the screen. Softwood lumber was up 73% year-to-date at that point. Good news is that's fallen back to pre-COVID levels. The bad news is there's very little wood in the school. But scrap steel was up 26% the last 2 months of last year, another 21% January and February. Scrap steel is the foundation of all steel products, reinforcing steel, steel beams, metal panels on the building, you name it. Drywall was up 20% the first quarter, copper up 13%. The Associated General Contractors has been running an annual or monthly construction index for over 40 years. And at the end of the first quarter of 2021, the previous 12 months was the highest inflation rate they had ever seen in over 40 years. And March of 2021 was the highest monthly inflation. I took a deep breath before I made this presentation to the board before, to the committee, because it wasn't the best news that they were going to hear. Our initial estimate that we presented at that time, based on the what's called 35% documents, it's before we have all the details, before we have all the specifications, everything drawn out. We actually had a number internally initially that was about $500,000 more than that. But and I appreciate Jeff's comment about us being on board early, we were able to have a lot of conversation with the design team to better understand what was there. And ultimately, we felt that at that point, that snapshot in time is how I describe estimates. We were at about $33,221,000 for what we thought the cost of the project would be. And as always, we advise our clients to include a contingency in the project for unforeseen conditions, things that may happen along the way. Brought the total to about just over $34 million. Following that, I want to talk a little bit about the guaranteed maximum price development process. And let me first define what a guaranteed maximum price is. As your construction manager at risk, when we sign a contract, we are going to give you a price. It's called a guaranteed maximum price. And what that is the most you will pay for the project. If it goes over that cost, it comes out of my pocket. If it comes under that cost, you receive all the savings. We do not participate in any savings, and as we stated during our interview process and at every meeting, we are completely transparent. You have full access to our accounting system. We will provide you with whatever level of detail reports you would like. We will back up all of our invoices with detail, but at the end of the day, you will only pay a maximum of this amount, and if it comes in less, again, all the savings stay with Wight County Schools. So we presented the estimate that I just showed you on April 23rd. We also presented an extensive list of cost savings opportunities. Mr. Harris touched on some of these, and it's what we call an intensive value engineering cost savings effort, and it truly was a team effort. It involved the members of the committee, it involved the design team, including their engineers, it involved MBCon and our partner Heartland Construction. A lot of meetings, a lot of emails, a lot of phone conversations. We reduced costs by focusing on needs, not wants. And that was a major focus for us in this process for the entire team. A couple of things I want to talk about. No reduction in the square footage of the building. No reduction in programs. The changes we made were aesthetic in nature and not impacting any of your educational process, the education of your students, or the size of the building. And the committee made that clear from the start that that was a very strong focus for them, and we as a team bought into it. Again, I would say it was a great team effort. It's been a great pleasure working with this team. Again, we had multiple meetings and reviews. We provided a lot of additional supporting data. If there were questions about what an item might be, if there were other alternatives, it wasn't just a quick one-shot thing. It was a very intense effort. And again, the collaboration produced outstanding results. We had initially identified 64 potential areas, and some of them, rightfully so, were rejected by the committee. They were ideas we threw out there. We kind of do this as a process of coming up with anything that we think of, but the committee rejected a number of those because they simply weren't suitable or practical for Isle of Wight County Schools. However, 43 were partially or totally accepted. And just in general terms, 9 of those were on the building exterior. Again, Jeff pointed out a couple of those that produced some savings. On the interior, we identified 22 items, removing some additional drywall soffits in classrooms, changing some of the flooring materials. I think we changed the type of folding partition. Again, nothing that impacts program, nothing that impacts education, just looking at ways to save you money. There were 5 items identified in the mechanical and electrical sections and 7 in site development. So then I came back on September 1st to another meeting, hoping to have better news on the marketplace. Unfortunately, the news wasn't good in the marketplace. Through the couple of weeks leading up to our making this presentation, we were very strongly in the subcontractor and vendor market. Some of the things that we picked up in the course of time was that the cost of aluminum, which goes to all the windows and storefront door frames and other components of the building, cost of aluminum had gone up an additional 8%. One of our major steel suppliers had been told by their mill to increase their budgets by $88 per ton per week until further notice. That's how much steel continues to escalate. Doors, frames, and hardware, there's a company called Asa Abloy, which is one of the largest distributors in the nation of hollow metal frames, wood doors, metal doors, hardware. In May, they imposed a 10% surcharge on every order. In July, that increased to 25%, and as of September 20th, that surcharge is going to 45%. Just anecdotally, one of my wife's cousins visited with us over Labor Day. She happens to work for a large hardware hollow metal door supplier in Charleston, so I just kind of asked Barbara, by the way, Barbara, have you heard about this? And she said, absolutely. We got an email last week that said there's a 45% surcharge. So it wasn't just the bidder that was telling us on this project. It is something that's happened. Second thing is delivery times for materials are getting totally out of hand. Right now, steel joists, structural steel joists and deck, we're being told could be as much as 8 to 10 months. Some roofing materials are as much as 8 months out there. So there's a supply chain issue that's impacting construction cost as well. Going on with the GMP, Guaranteed Maximum Price Development process, when we got the final documents from RRMM, we did a detailed quantity survey. And what that entails is counting every block, every brick, every door, measuring everything in the building to make sure we understand what the quantities are, so when we talk to subcontractors, we have a basis of conversation with them. Intensive market outreach. We contacted over 1,000 vendors directly, by email, by telephone, just reached out to people that we know in the market. Between Heartland and MBCon, we both have extensive databases, but we reached out to over 1,000 vendors directly. We also publicly advertised for bids in the Smithfield Times, along with multiple construction trade journals and plan rooms. We wanted to get as broad coverage as we could because competition drives better pricing. We analyzed and scrutinized over 230 bids. Every person that submits a bid has a list of qualifications on it, so we had to go through all those, make sure we weren't missing something, making sure that if we included it in the price, that it was the products that were specified by the architect, that you were getting the right thing. Result is we actually brought the cost down in face of this fierce price escalation. Not as much as we would like to have, but it still was an improvement in the pricing. Now we have a anticipated cost of the building of $32,697,973. Included in the specifications were unsuitable soils allowances of $218,000. And this is if we hit soils that are not strong enough to support the building or for bedding pipes, that sort of thing. There are now allowances in there to protect against those unforeseen costs. And then again, there's a contingency of 2.5% of the guaranteed maximum price of $817,000. So while we believe the building will come in at about 32.7, the initial contract amount, including those, would be $733,422. Some other things to consider, and this is what I call market wildcards. Yeah, all right, back up the right, no, we're gonna pull this out to do it. All right, thank you. Jeff suggested I explain those one more time. If we don't hit unsuitable soils, that money stays with the schools, and the same thing with the contingency. Any unused portion of that comes back to you, as well as any savings under that guaranteed maximum price line as well. All those savings return to you. And I can assure you, we'll make every effort to return those savings to you because we want you to be a happy client. Market wildcards. These are things that could impact pricing. My office calls me the eternal optimist. They don't understand why I have a smile on my face every day despite the opportunities I have to solve things. And I would like to be optimistic and tell you that prices are going to come down in 3 months, but I'd be lying to you. I just don't see that happening. And the number one reason, and I put this in green to show as dollars, I guess, if the federal government drops the hammer, as I call it, on this $1.2 trillion infrastructure package, it's going to further exacerbate construction costs. It's going to drive them up because that's going to put even more demand out there. Dropping back for just a second, what happened to cause a lot of these problems with the cost and the supply chain logistics? At the outset of COVID, everybody thought the entire industry was going to shut down. Construction did not. Virtually every state in the union designated construction as an essential industry, so we kept working. The supply chain side did not get the same designation, so supplies got short. They laid people off thinking construction would shut down, and just the opposite happened. I think everyone's aware of the housing boom, among other situations, and that goes to the supply chain logistics. There is still a long backlog. We see spot shortages of things at different times. An example is we're doing some libraries, and just the slab of corian to make the reception desk normally is something that the vendor would pick up the phone, call the supply house, and have it delivered 3 days later. They told them maybe December, plan on January, just to get a basic slab. That's how far backed up some of the materials are. And the last part is labor shortages. We are seeing that in the construction industry, and we think it's going to continue. The reason I'm bringing these up, well, let me back up again for just a second. I think it's that way, yeah. I figured it out this time, thank you. The reason I'm bringing this up is to emphasize that the time to buy is now. I'm having this conversation with many clients. I do not foresee prices dropping in 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, probably not at best for a year, and even then, I think that's rolling the dice, simply because of that federal money that may be coming down the line that's going to further heat up the construction market. So my advice is if you can make it work, now is the time to buy this project. Second thing I want to talk about is what I call schedule wildcards. Right now, we are on track to complete this project summer of 2023. Be starting late this year, complete the new construction about the time school would get out in 2023, and then over that summer, demolish the existing building and finish out the parking and site work. A couple of things out there is the Phase 1 Archaeological Survey that was conducted, and there's a meeting next Tuesday to discuss this. And at that point, we'll have a better idea what, if any, impact that will have on the schedule. But there was an archaeological study that identified or suggests that there was a presence of one or more dwellings occupied over a period potentially spanning the late 18th century through 19th century. So as always on sites, there may be something that needs to be investigated. We have a meeting next Tuesday. We're hoping it's not a major impact, but it is out there. Again, supply chain logistics, the sooner we can tie down vendors and subcontractors, the better delivery dates we will get, just based on what's going on in the marketplace. And labor shortages, we think competition for labor in our industry is going to be intense over the next 2 to 3 years. There is a shortage of skilled workers as it is, and that's another thing that we see is going to drive prices up, is companies competing with each other for that labor. So again, we think it's a good time to go forward. So let me talk about moving forward. One comment I will make is further, and I put it in quotes, investment in existing Hardy is wasting precious dollars. There's not a good long-term solution to rehabilitating that building. Any dollars you spend in there, as I make the metaphor, you may as well just take dollar bills and set fire to them, because you'll have a very short return on anything you spend on that building. So to move forward, first step is to approve this GMP proposal, Guaranteed Maximum Price proposal. Currently, we do not have a construction phase contract. That would follow the approval of this Guaranteed Maximum Price. We are under contract for services through this point. And assuming, this is all on the assumption that this gets approved, schedule a groundbreaking ceremony, get some excitement going about what's coming. We are nearing completion of the permit process, I believe, Jeff. Number of approvals we have to have through various departments. I will give a plug to Wight County that the folks we have worked with have been tremendous. Very cooperative, just great to work with. It's been a very smooth process. Once we have all that done, we can establish a firm construction date, and that great expression, get her done. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Would our schedule, as far as getting her done, would that be altered as far as if supply and demand, and, you know, do you foresee some delays based on supplies coming in or deliveries and all that?
Based on what we have been told, and I can assure you, and TJ and David aren't here, I want to give credit to two other folks that aren't here, TJ Canfield with Heartland and David Knight with MB County, the two estimators have been working hard on this. They've been in touch daily with literally hundreds of these suppliers and subcontractors, and that's where we're getting this information on delivery. If we can move forward and get approval this month, we can tie down those delivery dates, and it will work within the schedule. If we wait 60, 90 days, I can't tell you what will happen, other than it's doubtful that the completion date could be made. This is unfortunately a decision that needs to be made pretty quickly, simply because of the market volatility.
Madam Chair, I'd like to say too, as serving on the committee and going through the construction management at risk process, even with the statement, we need to move forward quickly. We have followed the process and the timeline of that process exactly, and we are at the 100% design, which is the time to make a presentation, decide to move forward. So we haven't rushed past the process. I want to make that clear. But now that we're at this point, with all the other factors that they're sharing, time is of the essence.
Thank you, Dr. Thornton.
Make a motion or something.
So this is an action item.
Yes.
So we need to,
Okay. Madam Chair. Madam Chair, would like, oh, this is it? Okay.
no, wait a minute, okay.
Madam Chair, would like to make a motion to request the Board of Supervisors to approve the guaranteed maximum price of $33,738,872 for the new Hardy Elementary School construction and demolition. Second.
We have a motion, and it has been seconded. We need a vote, please.
This is the vote that I've been waiting for.
Still using it.
Okay.
I'm excited.
We are all excited about this one.
Motion carried.
Go into the agenda item.
Thank you very much.
So Madam Chair, I'd just like to point out the next step is a presentation next Thursday night at the Board of Supervisors meeting. And I do want to reiterate, I've built several schools before and been involved in the process. And this is the first process that the school board and Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission have had members at the table throughout the process. And I think it's been very insightful and very helpful from both perspectives. And it's been a good process.
I have a question. So after next Thursday, when the Board of Supervisors act, and if they do act, saying to go forward, when is the earliest that they could do the groundbreaking? Because I know the day of the groundbreaking is normally the same time they would normally start construction that day if it's no more than digging a hole.
So we would start immediately on a contract.
Okay.
And then I guess when the permitting was done,
I may step back up here. The groundbreaking ceremony I was talking about was more of a ceremonial groundbreaking for the board and all. And that could be done, we would love to assist you with that, and it generally takes about a week to 2 weeks to get through the logistics of setting up a program and picking a date and all that, which we'll be happy to help with. Then the actual construction start, we're anticipating being, right now, tentatively about December 1st.
Okay.
We think for the permitting process, and also part of it ties to those long lead items. What we don't want to do is get out there and dig holes and foundations and then sit there for 3 months twiddling our thumbs. That's not efficient for anybody. So we're going to time the start of that to tie into some of those supply chain things.
I'd just like to say that I think everybody on this board is so excited to get this project going. It's just phenomenal.
Well, it's kind of why I threw that line in there for the groundbreaking ceremony.
Okay. All right, thank you.
so much.
December.
Yes, ma'am. Now we're going to 15.4, if you don't mind, ma'am. We're going to architectural services. This was just the information. Oh, I apologize. Trying to move too fast. Auction items. We talked about earlier the 4 cars and the 1 van. At this time, I just need approval, action item to move forward so we can actually auction those vehicles off. So right now, it's an action item to move forward with auctioning the 4 cars and the 1 van.
Okay.
15.3.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the auction of the 5 transportation vehicles due to age, condition, and cost to repair versus value.
Okay, we have a motion and it has been seconded. We need a vote, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, who was the second?
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
Wilson. I want to get the same one.
Okay, motion carried. Now we're ready for the architectural services.
Yes, ma'am. This is information on 15.4. With architectural services, every 5 years, our Wight County Schools have to actually go out and rebid for a new architect for the next 5 years. It's a 5-year, 1-year renewable rolling contract. This was presented for the school board. An RFP was actually written, and it was actually submitted. From there, since then, there was a committee formed. We actually took all of the actual applicants, or the selective quality in, and we actually made a decision moving forward. And this is just the information to let you know that RRMM has been chosen as the architectural firm and contracted for the next 5 years with a rolling 1 year.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. If there are no questions concerning that, next will be the 15.5 Carsville additional classrooms. All right. This is just informing that a IFB has been written and has been sent to the lawyer, sent to the attorney, and checked over just for the specifications of the actual Carsville additional classrooms. These are 2 classrooms fitted for Carsville. The proposed plan at this present time is once these classrooms are installed, to move the 5th grade out to those classrooms to resort actual students around the building to add more space and add more just room for instruction. So this is just once again a informational, letting you know that tomorrow I will actually put this out on EVA and start selecting bidders. If there's no questions, I will move on to 15.6, the crisis manuals. Next is 15.6, the crisis manuals. This is one more time an informational. You have the actual file. We've sent the file over to you with all of the crisis manuals from the 9 schools. This is in compliance with the actual DCJS, showing you that every single school has a crisis manual in it and has the exact topics that it actually touched on. So you have those, and you can actually review those and just let us know if you need any more information concerning it. Please understand that each one of those crisis manuals are a fluid document. It will continue to change. In those, you have something similar to a traffic plan, and as you already know, the traffic plans continue to change to meet the needs of the public at this time. So that crisis plan will continue to change. If there's no questions, we'll move now to 15.7, the transportation update.
Madam Chair, if I can just point out one thing on that, because the crisis plans are on your board packet under executive content, because we do not release our crisis plans to the public.
Right.
For protection of,
That's what
if
makes
there
perfect
is an
sense.
emergency, we are the ones who know, and our students and staff are protected.
And those manuals are so detailed, and when you read through them, you just imagine
Absolutely.
having to use some of these, and you just cringe because,
Absolutely.
I mean, it happens.
Right. The principals put a lot of hard work and
Yes, they
dedication
do.
into those.
A lot of thought and
Yes.
time and energy goes into these plans, and we hope they never have to be
Absolutely.
used.
Yes, ma'am. For transportation?
Good evening, everybody. I'm gonna.
You've lost more hair.
Yeah, probably. Took my fire away there from a Anyhow, I prepared some remarks I'd like to start with tonight. When we started, we were 8 bus drivers short of having enough to cover all the runs. And that initiated the double runs at Smithfield High, Smithfield Middle, West Side, Carrollton, and one at Windsor Elementary. We planned pickup times were scheduled for double runs, and drop-off times due to traffic and car riders and et cetera, it has thrown the times way off from what we had planned and anticipated. We have to account for all students as possible riders on day one, and usually adjust within the first 3 weeks. That's normal. This year is a bigger challenge without the proper number of drivers. We have collected information on how many students are actually riding each vehicle, and we spent the entire day today looking through the possible ways to consolidate some runs and eliminate the double runs. This will possibly make some buses very crowded and make existing runs longer, but it will better serve our students who have been stuck at the school waiting on a double run. We have also worked with Mr. Johnson at West Side Elementary School to reroute the buses to the back of the school and make 3 parent drop-off loops in the front. The buses will be going to the back, the parents will stay out front. And we're going to pilot this tomorrow morning. Communication has gone out to parents, and staff will be on site to direct traffic on the grounds, and I believe Dr. Thornton will be out there with his flags helping as well. We will continue to monitor all runs and try to solve the problem the best we can. I do apologize for if we or any of the schools did not communicate properly with parents when changes were made. We should always be able to tell parents what bus their child rides at any given time. It's our goal to eliminate the double runs as quickly as possible, and we're going to take a look at making some reroutes and tweaking the routes by the end of next week to be able to implement the following week. And I'll kind of move into the question you had for Steve, Ms. Carr, the TransFinder payment that you questioned. TransFinder is our routing software. As you know, we hired a new routing tech this summer to replace the one that left earlier in the year. And of course, there's quite a bit of training involved with being able to use the software, manipulate it, and so on and so forth. That particular charge was a one-time charge for training, and I also, at the time, I had them contracted with them for some consulting services to take a look at what our current situation, our current runs were doing, and make sure that they were doing what they needed to be doing for efficiency. Although that was a little bit before we knew we were quite in the dire need for the bus drivers and what our needs were for enrollment. So we were doing good if we had a body to put behind the wheel of every bus that we had planned. So that being said, we are currently taking applications, and I'll put this out here. Anybody that's interested in driving, come on down. I'd sure like to chat with them. I did plan to put together a presentation, and I think I'll do that next month, about what it actually entails to become a bus driver, both what we look for in the type of folks that we look for, and also, you know, what legally that person has to do to drive a school bus in the state of Virginia. So at this time, I'll open it up for questions. You have my report in front of you.
So, Madam Chair, as you know, in the personnel report, Transportation brought forward to the administration a proposal to offer a $1,000 stipend to any bus driver who refers a new employee, and that they go through the training and that we're actually hired. And that's one of the proposals that you'll be voting on later. And the other was, due to having, we have to operate from the standpoint of, we may not find 8 drivers. Chesapeake, everyone is fighting for the drivers. And so our goal is to reroute all those buses, which may make some of our existing routes longer, but we want to eliminate the double routes so that students are our first priority. They get to school on time, they don't miss class, and they get to home at a time where they won't miss football practice or cheerleading practice or dance or whatever they're involved in. And so with that, we value the bus drivers we have. And so we also put in a recommendation for a one-time emergency stipend of $1,000 to every one of our drivers who's a regular route driver whose routes will be extended. And we will pay for that through the CARES funding and to help for spacing. So I just wanted to point that out because that was brand new as we're trying to solve the problem that Transportation brought forward, and we'll bring that to you tonight. So, are there any other questions?
Do we have more students riding the bus this year? I mean, because I'm looking and we still have lots and lots of pickups. You know, the long lines on the roads of parents trying to get in to pick up their children. We didn't used to have that, but now we've got the long lines of pickup, drop off and pickup, but we're still, you know, doing the bus driver issue too. So we've got two real issues, and I see administrators and their staff out there doing a great job trying to figure out, you know, how to organize the parent pickup. And they're having, you know, it's a challenge right now. You say, okay, this didn't work, let's try this. And that's what they have to do. But I was just wondering, are there more? It's still, the lines for the kids to be picked up or dropped off are still long, but we still have all these bus driver issues. Go, Susan.
I can respond to that. We have a lot more parent pickups and drop-offs. I was talking to Ms. Couch, and this year she has 189 compared to 132. So Carrollton, we're seeing a lot more. West Side, tons more parent drop-off. And I think COVID, putting kids on the bus, maybe parents aren't comfortable, so they're dropping off, picking up. And we're trying to adjust to that. And I mean, it's going to take us a little bit of time, and we're asking for parents just to really be patient with us. We're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Because, I got a email from a parent very concerned about the safety, because on the highways, going around a curve, and here's a car that stopped. So, I don't know if the law, our police can help us with this, because, we want to really be proactive in identifying some safety issues while we figure this out.
Is it possible to stagger the parent drop-off times? Like, I guess, schedule a parent, have them to sign up for a time that they want to drop off within a window? So you would not have them all there at the same time.
The problem with this year versus last year is the state of Virginia offered a waiver for our clock hours. That waiver is gone.
Okay.
So we can't let them out earlier like we did last year. We let car riders out earlier. All those things are over because we have to meet our required clock hours.
Okay.
And I think we might want to communicate that to parents, because I don't think they understand. I've had, a few parents say, why can't we do it like we did last year? Last year was working like a charm. So they don't understand that time allotment that we have to follow from the state.
And just for instance with Westside, when Westside first was built, it was not as large as it is now. So those drop-offs were probably appropriate 60 years ago or whenever the building was built. But we were able, we cleared out the whole back area where the food service is, and then we had parking there. We had parking for central office. We moved all of that today. We drove a bus back there to see if it could make the turn, and we were able to, which is going to allow us to bring the buses to the back and allow us 3 lanes for parent pickup and drop-off in the front. We're hoping that will take those cars off the road. And because it is dangerous, and it's blocking traffic, it's blocking people who are going to work on the Windsor end of the county. It's becoming a hazard. Carrollton, as we met, Lee's right, we met all day. And we talked about what can we do at Carrollton, which is kind of landlocked, where Chris is investigating. There's a little piece as you pull in there and you go to the back, there's like a dumpster. We're investigating, do we own the land right by there, or do we own enough to pave an area and drive past the playgrounds and build a parking lot? So we're trying to investigate anything we can to create a bigger loop and get those cars off of the roads. And the police do help us at West Side. I will tell you, and this is hopefully some of the community is watching, we're often asked, can you change the light at Smithfield Middle and High School and have a police officer at the light? You have to go through VDOT for approval for that. And often what is stated is the lights are timed with the weight of the vehicle, and the lights do a more effective job. Plus with 4 lanes, it's not very safe it would take 3 to 4 officers out there to control that traffic. So we've been investigating anything we can at these to solve this problem. And we don't want to discourage people from bringing their children either, because we don't have enough bus drivers and space on the buses. So it's
Well, even at Carsville, I know I had a parent communicate with me how far the line goes on 58, and just wondering if there's some way they can even be tracked down back in the back where the back where the playground is.
Right.
Because we got to get these cars off the highway.
Look at that, and I think Ellen's here. Yeah, I think Ellen Couch shared with us earlier. This is the first time I think she's had a problem with them backed up on the roads, and that school was a little better designed with some zigzagging area to put cars. It's a major challenge. It really is.
And I just wanted to reiterate what Dr. Thornton was saying about the law enforcement assistance that we've been getting is outstanding in the Carsville area, for the Windsor area, the Carrollton area, and of course the Smithfield High School area. It's been times where they had actually had law enforcement that was off duty that actually assisted in the helping out with the buses coming in, working directly with the principal. So it's been outstanding for the last couple of days with the law enforcement. I just want to make sure I pointed that out.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Ms. Tynes, for your statement earlier from the entire department. Thank you for your support.
Yes, I appreciate everything you all are doing. I know parents are going to be upset, and the students right now may be a little delayed in getting home, but the most important thing is we get them there safely.
Yes. Thank you.
Now go fix it. Okay, next on the agenda is the report from the superintendent. We're going to start with the equity update.
Got that one?
I think so. Great, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Thornton. We are going to share with you a little bit of what we're doing with regard to social emotional learning as the kids have returned to school this year. But I will start with, Eric, is it an arrow key? Yes, okay. I'll start with what we did last year, just to recap. Last year, when the kids returned to school, thank you, school-based mental health staff, such as our school counselors, social workers, and psychologists, they met monthly, and they discussed things like counseling, adult and teacher self-care, COVID-19 specific issues, threat and risk assessments. They also reviewed VDOE's revised suicide prevention guides, and they discussed tricky ongoing cases and needs presenting throughout the district. In terms of training and resources, last year teachers were trained on SEL and abuse during pre-service weeks. We did partner with Western Tidewater Community Service Board, and we trained on youth and mental health, recognizing and responding. And we also provided resources to schools highlighting simple Tier 1 interventions and supports, and we did list red flags for the need for additional Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports for students. This year, we are taking a different approach to behavior, a more structured approach to behavior. We have had our behavior IAs in the elementary schools for the past couple of years now. They have not been under special education, but this year they will be. They are actually going to be supervised by our board-certified behavior analyst, and she has the group of 5 behavior IAs working with her. They've been training all summer, and we are going to be implementing RTI with behavior. So we're approaching behavior more structured and through that RTI process this year. So what that's going to look like is at the Tier 1 level, which is that base level of intervention. The behavior IA is going to be working with our behavior coach, and they're going to determine what Tier 1 interventions would be appropriate for specific students that are identified by the building administrators as needing support. Materials and supports are going to be created by that behavior IA,
And that behavior IA will meet with the school team, talk about what the interventions are going to be, and then the general education teacher will implement those interventions because this is at tier 1, so that's that base general education level.
Trish, I have a question.
Sure.
Before you go too high. So the behavior IA, that's instructional assistant.
Yes.
So have they had special training?
Yes.
Are they, how many are at each building?
One.
One at each elementary
Yes.
building, not middle and high? Just-
Correct.
Just the
Just
elementary
right now, yep.
And how many behavior coaches do we have?
One. So Kaylin Long is our BCBA. She's our behavior coach, and she has the 5 IAs under her currently. So after Tier 1, if those interventions are working, great. If not, they will move to Tier 2 through the RTI meeting process. In terms of Tier 2 interventions, that's when the behavior IA is going to possibly tweak what's been presented, what's been tried. They might introduce something different in terms of a support, but that's when they are hands-on with that student. So the level of intensity just, is up 1 notch essentially in that Tier 2 process. Again, we're looking at a 3-week time frame in terms of allowing the interventions to take place, going back to the RTI team, determining if they're working, and if not, then we move to Tier 3.
Trish, when would we be able to get an update on how this is going since it's a new program?
Yeah, we can update it whenever, semester might work. We have a great data collection tool that we've designed to help not only the administrators identify the students, but as the IAs are working with the students to identify how the interventions are working and where the kids are in terms of the process and their progress really with behavior. So we'll have that data so we can take a look at it when you guys would like.
Sounds like a really great program.
We're hoping that it takes off the way we envision it. Kaylin has been working with the IAs already this summer. They're doing a lot of training. They have a lot of materials at their disposal in terms of visuals, in terms of reinforcers. So we're hopeful that this will be a support to the schools and the kids.
And these are children who aren't yet identified
Correct,
as
thank
special
you.
education
Correct,
children.
thank you. Yep. These are students who don't have an identified
IEP.
disability. Exactly. So we're trying to broaden that support for kids who are simply having difficulty, returning to school. All right, and at that Tier 3 level, which is the top of the triangle in terms of RTI, we are at that point, if things have not worked with just the general accommodations and supports, the hands-on support with behavior IA, we're now looking at a behavior change plan. So that's a little bit more formal, and we have that behavior change plan in place. It's going to be more formalized, documented. Again, we're increasing the supports, we're increasing the time with that student, and then of course after 3 weeks, if those things have not helped with regard to that individual student's needs, then we would move to the next step, which possibly could be child study. Do you guys have any questions about that plan?
Best of luck.
Thank you.
I really wish you the best with that.
We're hopeful. I think it's a good plan, and we'll tweak as needed.
Yeah. We need something like that. It's
It's
evident. we do.
structured, and we've been needing it, so I think it'll be good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Thornton, board members. Congratulations. The greatest of the community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members. That was a quote by Coretta Scott King. In an effort to show more compassion and support for all of our students in the Isle of Wight County community, we teamed up with Farmers Bank and Christian Outreach to give over 350 backpacks stuffed with school supplies. Last Thursday, September 2nd, families on both ends of the county came to Windsor High School and Smithfield High School to pick up backpacks so that our extraordinary children could feel prepared and have a sense of belonging on their first day of school. Inclusion ensures that all of our students feel invited to school, but equity assures that they have what they need when they get there. We would like to thank the teachers, staff members, student volunteers, and community partners who showed up with compassion to serve our families. Next year, my goal is to double the number of backpacks we gave out this year to 700 for next year. And anything is possible if we all work together as a community. Now, this is just the start of our goal to become more engaged with our families, and I'm excited to announce that 12 staff members from the division, including myself, will be attending the 2021 National Family Engagement Summit in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm still learning to say Norfolk the way you all say it.
I caught it.
I tried so hard, but my Jersey accent is still there. But I'm trying though, y'all. I got y'all right. The theme for the 2021 National Family Engagement Conference is Reconnecting and Reimagining. Now, the goal of the conference is to help us as a division do a couple of things. The first is gain strategies to promote equitable family engagement practices. Now, that includes, but it does not limit, communication is accessible to all families regardless of internet access, disability, or language barriers. Number two, discovering family engagement practices that lead to maximum learning advances for all students. Evaluating the effectiveness of family engagement efforts in our school across the division. 4, exploring how to build capacity to support more collaborative family and school partnerships. 5, to gain strategies to connect with families in and out of virtual environments. And 6, finding best practices to empower and support all of our families while celebrating language and cultural diversity. Now, we hope that we will grow in excellence with intentional family engagement that fosters a sense of belonging in our community. After all, the African proverb does say that it takes a village to raise a child. Thank you. Any questions?
I'm excited about the Family Engagement Summit. I'm looking forward to hearing about that.
Yes, ma'am.
The 12, you did say staff.
Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if you had any citizens, parents, involved in that group, but you did say staff.
Yes, and that's made up of, there's some teachers, some staff members, but they're also counselors because we know that they are directly connecting with those family members, and then some central office staff. And together we will work and come up with, bring that information back from the conference and present that to Dr. Dorton and the strategic plan committee.
Okay, thank
But the goal is more family engagement.
That is the goal, because if it takes a village, then we have to empower the village. And so when we talk about equity, equity is not just giving our students what they need, but it's giving our teachers what they need. It's giving our parents what they need. It's giving everybody what they need. And so we are focused into building our community and making sure that our families and our community members have everything that they need to support their child so they can get the best education.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
State assessment update.
Well, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Thornton. This evening, I'll provide you with an update regarding state assessments, specifically state SOL assessments, accreditation, and also student growth assessments. So let's start by looking back at state assessment administration and also the impact on the pandemic, on testing in the state. So the last full year of testing prior to the 2021 school year, as you know, we gave the state SOLs in the spring of 21. Prior to that, the last administration was the spring of 2019 for elementary and middle schools and the fall of 2019 for high schools. As far as accreditation, I just want to remind you that accreditation from the Virginia Department of Education and the state was waived for the 2021 school year because obviously no state SOLs were given in the spring of 2020. And then also, due to the continued impact of the pandemic on students, accreditation was waived for the current school year that we're in, the 21-22 school year. I'll have more on accreditation in some subsequent slides.
May I ask, so
Please.
we're going to be testing but the accreditation, is that what you're saying?
For this year, accreditation is again waived for the
Okay.
current school year that we're in.
Do the testing. is what
That's
you're saying.
correct. We
Gotcha.
will be
Okay.
testing, and I'll speak to that a little bit, and also accreditation. You may have some more questions at that point on it. So as far as the purpose of the SOL test, I think it's important for us to kind of pause for a moment and understand what is the purpose that the SOL tests were given in the spring of '21. It's very important that those assessments were given knowing that during a pandemic, things were not going to be the same, especially student achievement data. But the most important thing there for us as educators and for our students is the information regarding the impact of the pandemic on student achievement. So we have rich data, vast data now to look at to help our students with the needs that they may have. And it's also the spring of this past year provides a baseline for growth for future accreditation calculations, and I have some specifics on those calculations in a few moments. In addition, the VDOE allowed for remote student progress tests this past spring. And what that basically means is that for families who did not want their students to come into school to take the state SOL, they may have been home on virtual learning and they didn't feel comfortable having the child come in, the state did offer that student progress test. It wasn't a secure test, so it's not an SOL test, but from that we now have, again, detailed information regarding those students and how they fared on the state standards of learning for their grade levels and subjects from last year. And also, obviously, to identify areas for instructional need and areas of instruction. One of the key pieces here is that the purpose of the spring '21 administration, and now the data that we have and that's been put out to the media and to divisions, from the state, from the Virginia Department of Education, from the state superintendent, it's been made very clear. The purpose of that data is not as we've done in past years, where we look at our data, we compare it to previous years for our division, grade levels, or maybe we compare to neighboring divisions. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to have the student achievement data to inform instruction. One note that I will make that came out from the state and, in our case, IWCS pass rates for the 2021 SOL tests reflect disruptions to instruction caused by the pandemic, decreased participation in state assessment programs, pandemic-related declines in enrollment, fewer SOL retakes. That was not an emphasis, obviously, this past administration, retakes, and more flexible opt-out options for the state assessments. So the piece that I made about the importance is the achievement data and the reports that we get regarding individual students, as well as some aggregate data for student groups to inform instruction. That's the key. But you can see here some aggregate data. You'll notice Isle of Wight on the left, and then the state is the blue bar, and I'll speak to why those are missing for writing and history. So here you'll see reading, writing, math, history, and science. Those are aggregate from 3rd grade right through 8th, and then high school end of course. That's everything combined. And another important piece here is with the writing and history, you don't see the state data, and that's because those state scores are not reported due to the large number of divisions who used flexibility for local performance assessments in those two areas. So they just didn't report out on that data point. As far as the remote testing that I talked about, and that was for students who parents were not comfortable having them come to school to do the SOL test administration. Those remote tests that were taken, those scores are not in this aggregate data. They were not a secure test. They were, again, simply used to help us with data to inform instruction. Another important piece that I've mentioned is how the data is going to be used to inform instruction. Let's take a look at that a little bit more closely. So what we pulled here, Colleen Loud helped us with this. She just pulled a generic student detail by question report. So we get these reports for each and every student, and we get very similar data for those who took that remote assessment. But this is the type of data. If you look at, for instance, that box that has, I think it's like a yellowish, orangish border at the top, that's where we literally can see for every student the reporting category, we can see every student question from the adaptive test, which you see it's either the higher, middle, or lower level question that was asked. And then we can see by the X if the student got it correct, the check mark if they had it wrong. But that's just a wealth of data at the teacher's fingertips. And they have that for individual students. They can also then look at some more aggregate type data for like a grade level, things of that nature, which can really help to reflect on pedagogy that was used for different strands.
So if I'm a teacher in a particular class, then I don't have the data, I have access to the data of all the students that took the test in my class.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Ms. Perkins, you would also have data for students who took the remote assessment. It wasn't the SOL, but it's based on the standards, and so you would have very similar data.
So this student here, you said the X were the ones that were correct and the checks were wrong?
I'm sorry, I may have said that in
I was
the
just
converse of
wondering.
that. The X would represent wrong, and the
Okay.
checks would represent correct.
Okay, all right.
So, but they can quickly look and see and identify which standards and start to then say, okay, small groups, where might some needs be for that student? Very important. And then you put that together with some of the data assessments that we use that Ms. Getz was speaking to. We start to very quickly be able to address need. One quote that I wanted to share was something that the state superintendent, Dr. Lane, said, and I think it speaks to what we're talking about. He said recently, about the time this data came out, what matters now is where we go from here, and we'll use the data from the SOLs to identify the unique needs of every learner as our school resume in-person instruction. But again, his emphasis is on use the data to help children now to grow.
And I think often we get caught up into comparing ourselves to the state or comparing ourselves to Suffolk or Hampton. And that is what I mean a lot of times about we get hung up on one assessment, one day in time. It's to inform our teachers, our instructional staff, how to better teach our children as we move forward and what are their gaps from year to year. And one example back on that slide, so you see past proficient. A teacher may see this and she may see that first one, draw conclusions where the student got it wrong. She may see that 3/4 of her students got that wrong. So they're
Right
triggered.
Yeah.
She needs to.
I need to teach that to her.
Exactly.
However I delivered that, it didn't seem to stick with anyone. So teachers really dig deep into this information to inform their instruction and become better. And I think we have lost our eyes sometimes when we focus on just competition, or we got to the next guy. It's about meeting every kid's individual needs.
So teachers in schools will do exactly what Dr. Thornton said with this data that's coming in for your students that you're receiving, but you can look at the data also for the group that you taught the previous year. Now you have that data and you say, well, what strategies or approaches did we use to teach a certain concept that students did very well on, or maybe not so well on? You might adjust your pedagogy from that data. So here, next we'll look at growth assessments. All right, so looking at legislation, in 2021, General Assembly passed legislation requiring the implementation of growth assessments in reading and math for grades 3 through 8. So that's in place. Here's the timeline from the Virginia Department of Education. So our current school year right now, this is year 1 of that growth assessment timeline. We will implement growth assessments this fall, so they'll be administered this fall. And we'll then give the state SOL, the formal SOL test, in the spring. And again, we're talking about grades 3 through 8, reading and math. Year 2 of the growth assessment implementation, per this legislation, is the 2022-23 school year. And for that, you'll do a growth assessment in the fall, one mid-year in the winter, and then you'll do the formal actual SOL test in the spring. So you can kind of think of it like little check-ins along the way. You'll have the fall, you'll do a check-in mid-year, that's rich data, same type of data and reports we're talking about that we just looked at, all to inform instruction and to help us form groups, help meet the needs of students, whether it's to accelerate them, remediate, whatever they might need. So that'll be a tremendous asset. But the word growth let's not lose that, because that's critical to this. And we'll speak to that in a little more detail in a moment when we talk about accreditation.
May I ask a question?
Please.
So now, what we've been doing is we've been assessing when they come to school about mid-year and at the end of the year. And we've been doing that, but now the state is coming along saying, we're going to test at the fall, in the middle, and at the end, which we've already been doing, but now we're going to have to be doing that for the state, and we're going to be doing our own? We're saying, no, we're just going to do the state?
Yeah, we're gonna adjust our whole timeline, you know, for next year or for the mid-year. Like, we won't need to do that for every student.
I was going to say, because that's just
It's
way
just
too much testing.
It is.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Correct. So with this, we obviously will have some natural adjustments that we'll make with what we have been doing previously. So a couple notes about the growth assessments. They're developed by the Virginia Department of Education. They're fairly concise computer adaptive tests. And this is really important. So when you look at the fall of 2021, right now, we'll give that growth assessment. And that will be based on content from the previous year's instruction. So if I'm a sixth grader, I'm a sixth grade math student. I'm going to take the growth assessment. It will be an assessment of the fifth grade math standards of learning. So it's not a pretest. It's to see how have I done in mastering the previous year's standards of learning. And then my teachers can use that to help craft a plan for me to support me moving forward. So that's a very vital piece of that. It's not like a pretest of content to come.
Do we know if the test is going to look like a SOL test, or is it going to be a different kind of test?
I believe the format that students will be fairly similar in a computer adaptive test to what they're used to doing now. I mean, I think
Shorter.
a little
Sounds like
shorter.
shorter.
Colleen, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
So it is going to be shorter. The math is 20
You
to
come
20.
talk in the mic so they can hear you at home.
The math is 20 to 25 questions. Reading is 17 to 20 questions. It's run through TestNav, which is the same program that SOLs are run through. So when the kids go in, it's going to look exactly like it looks in the spring when they take SOL tests. It's just shorter.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Gives them test-taking experience as well, prior to.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Gives them test-taking experience too, prior to taking the SOL test.
Exactly, especially for our third graders who have never taken it before.
Yes.
And even our fourth and fifth graders who, if they refused testing last year, then they wouldn't have taken one yet. So it does provide valuable experience there.
We've always tried to provide our students with some SOL type experiences, but this is the real thing created by the Department of Ed that the students will sit for. So that's definitely a great point. Okay, so as far as the purpose of the growth assessments, well, we've talked about some of them already. They'll identify learning gaps from the 2021 school year due to the pandemic. And of course, by doing it in the fall based on the previous year's assessments, that's kind of already been made clear. We'll receive that student detail by question report that I shared with you. We'll receive that same type of report for the growth assessments for each student. But it won't have, on the one that I showed you, it had a score, whatever that is, 0 to 600. It's not going to have that. The purpose of that is just the data from the test administration. So there's not a score that we'll receive like the 0 to 600 or that the student would ever see. It's also to provide a baseline for a baseline to measure growth for accreditation for the 22-23 school year. So as we look to next year, they will have an accreditation formula, and these growth assessments will be part of that. So if you look at the next part I included, accreditation calculation will look at the spring of 2022 SOL. So in the spring, we give the formal SOL. It'll look at that, and it'll compare it to the fall growth assessment, and it'll also compare it to the spring of 21 SOL. Whichever comparison shows greater growth for the student will be used in calculating accreditation. And so with that, if you have any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I asked along the way. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the zone transfer and application for non-resident report.
So you have the report in front of you. As you see, we have lots of zone transfers and tuition students. We're just asking that you take a look at that. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Quite a few.
Quite, yes. Yes,
But they were approved. Some weren't, I saw.
correct.
Very few, but some.
Yes.
And they're only approved if we have room for them. So we have room for them?
Our employees, we always approve.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That's where
So-
most of them come from, our employees.
It's a really nice perk that we give our employees. They can bring their students here for free, and they can also choose which school they go to, whether they live here or not. So we do allow our employees to do that. The other ones, if we didn't have room, you're going to see they were probably declined.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next on the agenda is advanced placement test scores. Oh, sorry. Annual professional development.
I do them both.
That's
I
what
can do
we
them
don't
either way
want
you
to miss.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Thornton. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our annual professional development and where we are so far this year. COVID definitely put a little jam in that last year, but we did a lot of training virtually throughout the year. It was kind of an ongoing process. This year, our theme was to reboot. And by reboot, we meant refocus, realign, reignite learning. So we really wanted to get kids excited and get our teachers excited about remembering their why and their passion for teaching. We started early August with our administrative boot camp. It's 3 long, full 8-hour days where all of our administrators, so our central office administrators, our principals, assistant principals, instructional coaches, this year even our reading coaches, attend our boot camp, as we call it, and we address issues of instructional leadership. We norm our walkthrough documents, and we review lessons, and we kind of talk about what the feedback's going to look like for those individuals during that time, so that we're all talking the same language in every building. We address curriculum updates, anything that's going to be coming down the pike for them, things they need to know about. We talk about management and expectations and making sure the facilities are up to par and taking care of your work orders and processes, things like car drop off and that sort of stuff. And then most importantly, we talk about strategic planning within the individual buildings so that they are aligning their practices with the mission and vision of the division. Then we launch our new teacher orientation. This is 2 full days for all of our new teachers. I have to say this was the biggest class we've had as long as I can remember. But they really come together, and the new teachers kind of get a sense of community as they get to know each other. There's a lot of team building, but then there's also talk about school and classroom culture and how you build that in your classroom with relationships with your kids. There's an emphasis on deeper learning, and we go through the focus documents so they really understand what that means and what it looks like here in our building. We talk about the instructional framework, and we walk them through each stage of that, and they actually leave with a lesson aligned to the instructional framework that they will teach in their classroom during the first week of school. We talk about critical thinking, and they get an opportunity to explore the critical thinking focus documents and really dive deep into how they can institute and implement those specific practices in their classrooms. And then finally, we talk about project-based learning units. We introduce them to the PBL Lounge, where we house all of our projects that have been created and vetted by our staff over the years. And we walk them through the process of planning, tuning, designing, and launching a project, and then even talk about Expo. Then there's Convocation, which is an exciting event. It's personally my favorite event of the year. This year, as you said, we did have Mr. Larry Bell, who came in, and he was really just dynamite with our teachers and really getting people excited. Googa right? The power of a teacher, and he really talked about that in his breakout session as well. And then all of our teachers attended a reboot session that led into their Monday trainings around the the four documents that we're emphasizing this year. So PBL, deeper learning, instructional thinking, instructional framework, and critical thinking. So they did a little starter session on Friday, and then on Monday they had a longer session in depth with their coaches in the building. And last but not least is the work week and recurring professional learning. And work week this year was a lot. We had quite a bit of great opportunities for our teachers to learn and explore the aligned curriculum resources, the focus documents, Discovery Ed. We rolled out Freckle, Waterford letters, and No Red Ink, all programs.
I heard Susan talk about Freckle too. What's Freckle?
So Freckle is our response to intervention piece. So students, it takes their STAR 360 score and then puts students for remediation or for gifted. We have both sides of Freckle. So it's an adaptive program that works with that student at their level. Waterford is a reading program for K2. Haley is here and Haley's not with us, but Susan could speak more to the Waterford piece. Letters is more about really learning to read and the science behind how children learn to read, and so we're really excited about that one. And then the No Red Ink is something that our upper level teachers have been asking for years, that really helps kids with grammar and writing.
And you don't mark their paper up with red ink?
No, we don't actually. And neither does the program. No red ink.
No red ink. Well, that's what I meant. Not doing that. That's right.
We also took time to vertically articulate our K-12 STEM initiative, and so we had our K-2 scientific investigation gifted teachers push in, our STEM teachers, all of our high school engineering teachers. They all came together and looked at what we're doing at each level so that students are getting a different and unique experience in each of those courses, and they aren't getting the same thing in STEM class that they're getting in their scientific investigation push-in. So we wanted to make sure that it's unique and challenging and rigorous from a K-12 look. We reviewed our K-8 gifted plan. We've been through our fine arts alignment and curriculum resources. There was early intervention training. The STAR self-contained cohort continued their work. Stream in 3, our pre-K, had a little reboot as well with the UVA program. Power School special programs. Then even PE, SPED, and ELL teachers all had different opportunities to engage in dialogue and get back together and start that planning process again. We had, of course, our open houses and our planning for the cultural competency, which is coming down the pike with the teacher evaluation piece. So that's where we are with professional learning today. Any questions?
Do we know much about the cultural competence?
I think the information has just really passed, and we are kind of working through that right now to see exactly what that, because the state kind of put it out there but didn't give us a lot of guidelines around what it's supposed to look like.
And it's in our policy too for tonight.
Yes.
So I just didn't know if we had the information yet.
It does have to be in the teacher evaluation by 2022-23, and teachers will have to go through some training.
Mm-hmm. So
Will they provide the training? Like, is it something online?
We don't have that yet.
We don't have any of that, okay.
We do know it's going to be part of the evaluation process.
Yes. Thank you.
any questions? Here. So the next one's me too.
Testing.
All right. So AP testing results for the 21-22 school year. So this says testing changes, but really these are just changes from the normal way of testing for AP. These were things that were actually carried over from when we shut down in March. So there were multiple windows for testing again this year. All content was still tested. There were full-length tests provided to students. They had paper and computer testing options, and then students with significant medical issues were in fact allowed to test from home again this year, which was a carryover. We gave 54 tests in the math and science arena. A lot of the calculus, biology, those were our predominant ones. And 373 tests in the English, social studies, and fine arts areas. So there was quite a big interest in those assessments.
So I looked at this PowerPoint, of course, before tonight. If you could go back one screen. I don't understand why Windsor High School has no calculus AB or, I mean, it's like all the Smithfield High has, and we don't have any at Windsor. What's
The
that?
students may not have opted to take the test. They can choose not to take it, and if they don't take it, they take honors weight for the course rather than the AP weight.
It also does have to do with course offerings and what's offered at each school.
So that's what
versus-
bothers me. Are Windsor High School not offered these at Windsor High? Because that to me does not seem to be
If a kid at Windsor
equitable.
Windsor has the DE offering
They
of the
do
course.
DE calculus
Mhm.
instead of the ABBC, and that's just what they've elected to do, and they do have a strong enrollment in DE calculus. Smithfield does DE pre-calc. They don't do DE calculus.
If
So
a
it's
kid
just
at
a
Windsor though
difference.
wanted a particular AP course that was offered at Smithfield, could the parent or the student ask to be able to take that course at that school?
We typically would use Virtual Virginia at that point.
Would you?
If we needed to do that, but like I said, it's just a difference in course offerings. They
So
do
it's not a
DE.
disadvantage. That's what I want to
I
know.
mean, it's DE calculus, which is weighted as a 5 and is accepted in colleges, so that's a very strong course offering. Smithfield does not offer DE calculus, they offer DE pre-calc. It's just a difference in what they've done traditionally.
I mean, that's a whole lot of listings right there. That's 0. I don't know. I just want to make sure that Windsor Inn gets what
Yeah, that's
they
my-
should be able to get.
They can take it on through Virtual Virginia. They absolutely can take it through Virtual Virginia, but you also have to have enough to make a class. So that's, and you know, Ms. Perkins, you remember being at Windsor High School, you always struggle with, if you have 3 students who want to take AB calculus, you can't make a class for that.
Right, I understand
So
that.
we're
So is
always-
that when they're offered Virtual Virginia?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they can take Virtual.
Would it not be possible for that kid to go to Smithfield to take that class?
It depends on when it's offered. I mean, that's a 30-minute commute both ways. I'm not saying no, it's not possible, but it just would depend on, do they have time to get there? And many times that's going to prohibit them from going to the other school. But like, if you go back to looking at DE calculus, you're getting a same, that's the highest weight you can get, AP, DE. So you're still getting that course weight.
Okay.
So
All
you're
right,
not
one
gonna
more
be-
question.
Yeah,
You know how we got really good at virtual learning
yeah,
at home?
uh-huh.
Is there any way that Windsor High could be virtual at the Smithfield High and not have to travel, but do the virtual into a classroom that might not have made at Windsor High?
And those are things.
We've done that before,
We have.
years ago.
We have, and we've explored that, and those are things we could do. It's not that we could not do that, we can. It just hasn't been a need where the school has requested us to do that. Hey, we have these kids that really want to take it. The kids take the DE calculus.
Okay.
I have a question for you. The last 2, the physics, have we ever had students enroll in those programs?
We had students that sat for that test last year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. So, but total, we gave 427 AP tests across the division. Now, that's not necessarily, that could mean more than one student taking more than one test. So that counts each individual assessment, not each individual student. So our average scores by subject, the first column there, you see the lighter blue, that was our score last year. And the dark blue in the middle was our score this year, our average score. And then the final one on the end is actually the state average score. So as you can see, they went down a little bit, but also when you take fewer tests, it has a bigger impact on your average. And I think that they're pretty well in line with what we saw across the state. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, next is the vacancy report.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. Just a brief report on our vacancies for this summer. We had, as I think Dr. Carroll pointed out, we had a record number of new hires, which is great. And I do want to emphasize that a lot of the increase in the vacancies had a lot to do with the beginning of last year. We had a lot of teachers due to COVID reasons, and not teachers, but staff in general, resign last year, and so some positions were not filled, so that created a bigger vacancy pool than what we normally have. To date, we have filled 71 teaching positions. We filled approximately 34 instructional assistant positions, 11 administrator positions. We still currently have 5 regular teaching positions to fill, 2 special education teaching positions, and 8 IA positions to fill. Tomorrow, 2 of the schools have interviews for 2 of their teaching positions, so we're fingers crossed for that. And yesterday, I got a bus driver application, and today I got a bus driver application, so yay. So,
I think some of the parents are thinking they would put a sign up when the parents come.
Yeah.
Bus drivers.
Any questions?
The IAs that you said we have 8 IAs?
I think it's about 8, yeah. the
Well,
last
are
one.
they sped IAs?
They are, yes. We have one, we actually have one kindergarten IA, which is part-time, and then we have one, the first and second grade IA, the new position. We have one of those, and then the rest are sped.
So are we having sub-IAs right now? Because I know we have to have the number.
Christine, are we using subs for the
We
IA
have a
vacancies?
few,
or-
we have a few, but.
I think a few, we have covered all of our high need situations.
Okay.
That was sort of our goal. But
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is bullying prevention resolution.
Yes, good evening. The Virginia School Boards Association identifies October as Bullying Prevention Month. We have a resolution we typically bring to you in September so we can get that approved before October gets here. And, you know, I have to say, I'm not in the schools, but when I am, we've got some amazing kids, and I'm not saying that bullying is not an issue, but I sure don't see a lot of the issues like I did when maybe I was back in school. They seem so accepting and respectful. And I kind of wanted to segue from what Ms. Jackson said. I think a lot of times the children can be our examples for the adults. So having said that, I would appreciate your approval of the resolution.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this is an action item.
Okay. Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve the bullying prevention resolution as presented by Ms. Briggs.
Second.
Motion made. It has been second. Vote, please. And this is something near and dear to my heart. There is just no excuse for bullying, and I cringe when I even think about it. Okay, motion carried. Next is the report on opening day of school.
Now I get the good part. Because I'm just going to make you smile. I'm going to let you look at cute
already
kids.
smiling, Susan.
I'm going to let you look at cute kids. I'm just going to let you smile. If you have any questions, let me know. Obviously, we welcomed a whole bunch of kids back on Tuesday, kids that haven't been in school for a very, very long time. And I think if you were out and about, you saw there was a lot of excitement, as this little boy clearly. Here we go, getting off the bus. Kids have their masks on. Coming into school.
Those long lines of cars.
You see them, don't you?
We're
Dropping
still smiling.
off. But look at those little kids coming in. There's Miss Couch directing a little student. Yeah.
Oh, look at them, they're so cute.
They are, I know. Even with their little masks on, aren't they precious?
I love to see them with their masks on.
I know, they're so
And I
cute.
think they like them because they identify with their masks, some of them. Like,
Well, and you see a
look at this
lot of
young
them,
man.
right, they have like special
Yeah.
ones, exactly. Getting to work. And you know, really our goal for us this year is trying to make school as normal as possible for these children. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get back to normal.
Oh, look at the cafeteria scenes.
Yeah. And they're so happy to see their friends again.
Dr. Thornton.
Dr. Thornton is the orange jacket there.
I will tell you, that young lady, when I was talking with her, was drawing a nice picture with all different colors, and she said, "I want to draw you, Dr. Thornton."
Oh.
And she picked up an orange pencil and started coloring in orange, and then she looked at my pants. I had my burgundy pants on because Tech had won over the weekend. And she said, "Those are like brown." And this was in kindergarten, and she was trying to take two colors together to make brown.
Wow.
And it was just, it's so fun to go. I got
That's
to
high-level
visit-
thinking there.
Yes. And I went to visit Windsor Elementary School and West Side.
Yay.
And, yeah, and, yeah, it was just such joy in the building, excitement. And I'm going to put in a plug for West Side. Go visit West Side. The gray tiles are gone. We have completely painted the inside of the building, softened that building. The gray tiles made it look so dark, dingy. Matt Johnson has put
Institutional.
lights
Yes.
on in the hallway, like stick-on lights, or I don't know what they are. But he is turning that through his house system into a magical place to be. And we all know how old that building is. And it is worth, go walk through that building.
Yes.
And the renovations we did in the auditorium, there's a lot of good things happening in that building.
Look at there.
Yep.
They're so colorful. Look at them.
There you go. Thumbs up. For little learning center kids.
the learning
It is.
center.
It is. Aren't they sweet?
Is that Windsor Elementary there?
That was Windsor, wasn't it,
That
Dr.
was
Thornton?
Windsor,
Yeah.
yes. Mhm.
So they're the,
Those are the 4-year-olds.
okay.
Yeah.
They look kind, I was questioning
those are our
because they look like they
4-year-olds.
could be about first grade.
I was thinking they're big kids.
Yep. See, told you I'd make you smile, right? You're welcome.
Thank you, Susan.
I know it's cheating, it really is.
And Ms. Carr, before we leave my report, I do want to put in another plug and thank HR department for the work they did to fill so many vacancies and really recover from the pandemic. So.
I have a question, Dr. Thornton. Opening school, how many students did we have enrolled as of end of the day today?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Give me a minute, I'll tell you.
What about yesterday? What about yesterday? Can you tell me yesterday's?
Yeah, if you give us just a minute, we'll pull it up.
Okay.
I-
I was just wondering.
I can tell you Smithfield High School, 9th grade, is at close to
78?
I thought it was close to 400,
78, yeah.
which is about
high.
70 students
Ninth
more
grade.
than
Very high.
normal. So that one grade in particular, we usually see a little boom there because kids may
Right.
have been in a different school from K through 8 and then come to our high school. But this is one of the largest 9th grade classes.
5,619 today.
Okay.
Wow.
Which is over the projection.
Yep.
That's over last year.
This is just the first few days of school.
Yeah.
Some of them are still on vacation.
And I will say, I didn't know we were over.
Well, I'm not saying it as a, but some
That's what
kids
happens when you're
probably
good.
won't come back
Yes.
until this weekend if they're out of town for.
But normally, the last number we have to get to the state is September 30th, I believe.
Okay.
And normally, we're down 200-300 students at this time. We don't get to where we project till closer to September 30th. So that's a scary number, because there could be more coming.
Well, I'm happy to see that because as a board member with the pandemic and everything and the children doing virtual, and then you're hearing a lot of parents, well, I don't want to send my child back, I want to do virtual. I was afraid it will really be low. But I'm glad we're where we are. You know, it did drop drastically well, pretty much, I think about our budget, okay, and our funding. I didn't want it to be to the point that it dropped to the point that we had to alter some things. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is action on the closed session items. We need a motion?
Personnel report first.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the personnel report.
Addendum.
And the addendum.
Second.
Can you hit yours again?
It's not there.
I hit it. Oh, there it goes. No, it's still not showing. We'll get Eric. Eric, yeah, hers isn't. Oh, you did, I'm sorry. I didn't see it. You did. God, thank you.
Motion carried. All right, next on the agenda is religious exemption, REX, September 2101.
Madam Chair, I motion to approve the request for the religious exemptions for the compulsory attendance for Rex 122101.
Okay, we have a motion and it has been seconded.
I think we need to do all of them separate.
Okay, motion carried, yes.
Okay.
All right, next is religious exemption, REC, September 2102.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the request for religious exemption compulsory attendance for Rex September 2102.
Okay, motion made, motion second. Motion carried. Next on the agenda is the religious exemption, REC, September 2103.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve the request for religious exemption for compulsory attendance for Rex September 2103. Let's do the next one.
What, you want to do it? All right. Madam Chair?
Wait a minute, she hasn't called it yet.
Yep, next on the agenda is religious exemption, REC, September 2104.
Madam Chair, I move to approve Rex, religious exemption, Rex, September 2104.
Okay, motion made, and it has been seconded. Vote, please.
Okay. Okay. The 04?
I had Perkins and Wilson, right?
Correct.
Mine didn't come up.
It's coming up now. This is the first one. There you go.
Whoops, now mine doesn't want, yeah, there it goes.
Got it?
Yeah.
I think it's tired.
Here, let me go.
I am too. My back is starting to hurt a little.
I understand.
Okay, motion carried. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the consent agenda, the meeting minutes, donations, field trips, and financials.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion made, and it has been second. Vote, please.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, motion carried. And next on the agenda is the policies for the second read. Any questions on any of those listed? The only one I had was IHA, which is grouping for instruction. And that has been totally eliminated. Can you explain why?
So that's a VSBA recommendation because it's not required in state code. So they're going through and they're removing those that aren't required. If you read it though, it's what we do anyways.
I was going to say, we do it
We don't even
anyway.
need it.
We don't need policy to tell us
No,
to do
it's just good common sense, really. It's what we do anyways, but that's why it was removed.
Okay. Okay, so this is an action item.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the policies for second read as presented.
Okay, motion made, and it has been second. Vote, please.
It took a half a day to read them.
Okay, motion carried. Next on the agenda is regulations and exhibits, and this is just information. We had one. Any questions on that one? Okay, this is not an action item. Okay, and finally, it's a word everybody's looking to hear for tonight. Board comments?
Oh, I was going to say something. Is it on? Okay. So first, I just wanted to welcome Miss Dial and Kylie. I'm very excited to work with you guys. And I also wanted to say thank you to all the staff for making my first day of senior year very special because I was so excited to come back to school and everyone did amazing and it was perfect, everything you can imagine. So
Did you drive to school?
I did drive to school. So traffic was a little crazy.
There was a lot of traffic.
Yeah, getting to field hockey practice, which was like 50 feet across the road, was a little crazy, but made it on time, so we were good.
And it's so nice to have you sitting up here too. We welcome you. Is there anything you'd like to say? How was your first board meeting?
Good.
Good answer.
Okay.
Did you have anything to say? Either one of you?
No, it didn't.
No. Okay.
Well, I said pretty much what I wanted to say at the beginning, but I would like to, at this time, thank all of our Wight County Schools staff for getting our students back to a regular school year. Thank you very much. Also, Neely and Kylie, y'all got this over there. I'm gonna confuse those two. I'm not asking you to do this, but think about it. If the two of you would like to work on a joint project this year, it will be helpful to me and probably the other board members and Dr. Thornton and staff. If you could maybe do a survey in your building about dress codes and how the students feel about the dress codes that we have now. What's
She
the
just
problem?
fainted.
Now, just do it, just do a little survey, bring it back to
Somebody needs
us.
to go help
They
Ms.
don't want a
Getz get
dress
off
code.
the floor.
I mean, but these are our experts, they work with the students, they're in the building and talk to them, okay? I mean, because we are one generation, you all are another generation, you know? Maybe, you know, we could sit down and discuss this and see where, if we possibly need to tweak it or something, you understand?
Yes.
And I'm not, we want them to cover, okay?
Yes.
But, you know, I trust you young ladies, thank you. Like I said, I'm not asking you to do it, but if you want to do work on a project, you know, I would just want to see what would happen, that's all.
Are we going to survey the
I'm sorry, Susan, if you.
Are we going to survey the teachers too?
That's for the staff to do. They're gonna work with the students, that's what they're here for, to bring their information, what the students want, need, and if we need to tweak some things, okay?
And Ms. Tynes, I would like to bring up, I know Neely is very interested in mental health.
Oh,
and
good.
Is going to be pursuing that and doing
Are
some
you gonna
work around that.
Yes,
Well,
that's
talk
what I was
to-
planning on.
Well,
Yeah,
talk to me later, I might have some other avenues you can.
Yes, it was hard during the summer just because it was crazy for everyone, especially like college applications, and it was
Yeah.
insane. So, but we were talking about starting it back up once the school year started, just because there also wasn't much to do over the summer since nobody was in school. So,
Well, the reason I said that, Neely, because I sit on another, a board, regional board for mental health, okay?
oh, perfect. Okay.
Okay, and I am going to end with a topic that's not as fun as what Susan got to do, but we did hear concerns about the Woke Challenge books, and I did get emails over the last couple of weeks. And first of all, the books available in the Woke Challenge, they're optional reading in the library. But the big concern for me is the need for parental involvement and transparency with the mature, controversial topics in some of the books. Books containing mature adult topics on sex, explicit descriptions of rape and vulgar and obscene language, violence, drug use. So our goal should be parental involvement and transparency that includes the need to communicate to parents books that their child has checked out at the Media Center. And that communication, or that communicates and allows parents to review all books and the right to provide direction for their child, and if read, discussion with their child from there. So I would like to see, because I've been thinking a lot about this, I'd like to see if we have the technology capability to send out email notifications to parents for every book that a child checks out. This involves the parents on these growing controversial issues that are in our world today. This would provide transparency for parents on materials put in the hands of their children. And I dare say there are not a ton of books checked out on the middle and high school levels. So even if we don't have that click of a button capability, an email notification to parents on books checked out at the middle and high school levels doesn't seem unreasonable. So at the next meeting, I'd like to have information on the possibility and other possibilities to provide needed transparency and parental involvement for growing number of controversial books made available to our students. Could we have that? I'm asking if,
We could. I think that's an overwhelming burden on staff, and it's not as easy as you think. We'll investigate to see the possibilities. And next I guess I'm going to say, is the next question, every book a student picks up in the library and doesn't check out and happens to read in the library, should we zoom in to see what they're reading?
I think we're trying to get a little bit overboard and what we're.
We have a policy and a form in place that if a parent doesn't like something that their student is reading, that they fill it out, it's sent forward, and there's a procedure for that. And I think there's no way we can possibly read every book we have in our libraries.
That's not what I said. I said that we need parental involvement. Parental involvement. These are not adults in high school. They are still children. They're not adults. And for this kind of content to be available for these children without parental involvement, knowing what their children are reading, I don't think we've done enough to make the transparency that is needed and the parental involvement where they know what their children have. And if we, I don't know what the technology involves, but I know that we have student ID with their email, their parent email, and they scan stuff here and they scan stuff there. I'm asking if a child checks out a book from the media center, why is it not possible for the parent to be notified? Because if my child checked out a book with explicit sex, descriptions of rape, vulgar and obscene language, I'd want to know about it. As a parent, I would want to know about it. And then if I get the notification, I can look at the book, I can approve it or I cannot approve it. And if I approve it, then it's a time where maybe I can have some discussion with the child from there. Right now, we give parents the opportunity to opt out of sex education. But we're not going to give them the option to say that book that if it were a movie would be rated R. We're not going to give that parent the option to say, I don't want my child to read that book. And I don't think,
Okay.
I don't think this should have to be overwhelming because I personally don't know the number of books that middle and high school students check out. So if we can't do this at the click of, a scan, then I don't see where it could be impossible to email, for the staff to email the parent the book that the child, and it could be the controversial ones or it could be all of the ones that they check out. But I know when I was in high school, I didn't check out books because I didn't want to read them, because I had enough to read that was assigned to me. So that was the least of my worries. But if my child were to pick out some of the books that I have seen and I have reviewed, that would bother me as a parent. So I am here to protect our students and parent rights. And my biggest thing in education is that parental involvement directly affects student achievement. We want our parents involved. We want them involved from preschool right on through 12th grade. And if this can help them be involved in their education, help our transparency, and provide and encourage parental involvement, then I think it's something worth pursuing.
We can look at the time frame, and it would have to be every book checked out, because whose moral compass are we following? Some of the speakers that spoke tonight,
fine to do
is it
every
their
book.
moral compass that we're going to decide what's in our schools? Or
I didn't say for you to determine what's appropriate.
you said either all of the books or the inappropriate ones.
Well, then-
I'd like to know what the inappropriate ones are,
Well, the
because what's
ones that
inappropriate to
they have
me and you
deemed-
and Sue and Lynn and George are all different.
The ones that they have deemed as being ones that have been banned and the ones that have all the controversial issues. But I
Madam
think
Chair-
the good thing
None of those
would
books
be-
have been banned.
Well,
They were
the
viewed as
concern.
challenged. They added the word banned. I did my own
Hey,
research.
may I read something? Oh, you're going.
No,
Sure, yeah.
that's all right, go ahead.
I just want to read something from a sec, because one of the speakers tonight brought up something, and I had read it earlier this week. The American Library Association condemns censorship and works to ensure free access to information. And the students get information from what? Books, media, and everything. I guarantee you, at least 75% of the homes that our teenagers that are going to Wight County Schools, and there's probably more, they're on TikTok and everything else. And they have all sorts of ratings on TikToks. But even when I was in high school, and that's been years ago, we had a few parents, one or two, I don't want my child reading that book. Well, fine, your child don't have to read that book. But maybe my parent didn't have a problem with it because they wanted to expose me to the things that are going on in life. We are training our students when they leave Smithfield High School, Windsor High School. They're going out there into a world that is not censored for them, okay? They're stepping out there. We want them to be able to survive. It's all about survival. These books are not on elementary. They're not on middle school. They're high school. These young people we are training to become young adults in our society. Now, if there is a problem, we have a policy. The parents can take care of that with the building administration. That's it. Unless we go back and change our policy, that's the way it is now. Otherwise, we're going to be censoring all of the materials they're reading. We're going to have to start censoring what's on their iPads or whatever. And, that's just too much. That's a whole nother staff completely, not even IT.
No, I agree with you, Ms. Hines. I think that when kids get in high school, they need to have the opportunity to explore different options. They may be exploring options with sexuality, their own sexuality. And they need to have the opportunity to read books on gender. And maybe some of these books that people are taking exception to have to do with that. But we cannot censor, I do not believe, the kinds of materials or the kinds of books that libraries accept in schools and censor those and not make them available.
I just want to say, so I have a teenager that's a senior. I knew nothing about this challenge as a parent, and her dad didn't either. I kind of agree with Denise. They are all on social media. We can't get my teenage daughter off social media at all. We have to take her phone at 9:30, and that's it. If we don't want her to read a book, she's not reading a book, period. I don't care. She can bring it to me. If I see it, I don't like it, it's it. It's what we say. So that's the structure in our home. So we have the right, but I wish I would have known about this challenge because I had no clue. I found that out today. So if was that for all the parents to see? Was that something that was displayed to all the parents? Because I knew nothing about this challenge. So maybe just making the parents aware of the challenge, not necessarily not taking the books off, but I would have liked to known about this challenge. Where was that information at for the parents to know about?
It's really not a mandatory challenge. It's something that I'm thinking the libraries, Smithfield High School library, the librarian probably say, well, okay, I'm pretty sure every year they have some project for the students to do, but it's not a mandatory thing. If the students probably want to go in and participate and take on that challenge, they have that option, okay? And just like you said, as a parent, you have the option to say, well, I don't want my child to read the books that are on that list. Do you have another option where they can still participate maybe in a challenge, but not read those books, okay? And that's what's in our policy.
That is for assigned readings. If there is an assigned reading and you don't agree with it, then there's policy. These books are not assigned readings. When you go out in the world, movies are rated, video games are rated, and it helps you know what's in the content. Well, books aren't rated. But if I'm a parent and we have that kind of book in the library and my child were to check it out, I would want to be aware of it so I could talk to my child about it. I could look at it. I could say, no, I don't want you reading that. Or yes, we can read this together, have discussion with it. But I feel like that parents that we need to be transparent, and parents need to know. If those books are available, they need to know if their child has it.
So the concern is the language in the books.
It's more than language. It's sex, it's explicit descriptions of rape, it's vulgar and obscene language, it's violence, it's drug use.
Have you walked in the halls of high school USA during class exchange? You hear lots of things, okay? The language that you hear,
Well,
peer-to-peer language.
I am one of 5, but I have expressed my concern. I don't feel like that books should be, I just feel like parents need to know. I'm not saying ban the books, but if my child has it, please let me know. And if we have the technology to let me know, I don't see why it can't be done. If a child checks out a book at Smithfield High School, zip-zam, I get an email, I see, oh, we checked out the book, Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
So that means...
So I know what they checked out. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't need to say anything. But if I look at a book and I'm like, what is this? I can go and I can do my own research and see if it's something that I want to talk to my child about.
So at this point, we're going to need the emails. The librarians in all of the schools now will need the emails of 5,619 parents.
I just
Okay?
asked if we
And-
have the technology available. I don't know. That was how I ended my request.
And even, we're going to have to start even from the K, if that's what we're going to be doing. Your child checked out this book. Maybe Julia had a problem with her child checking it out yesterday in kindergarten. I don't have a child, but the librarian is going to not just check it out to that child anymore. We also have to let the parent know that this is going on,
No,
too.
we don't. You just let
It's
them let
called
the child
censorship.
know.
Children should have an
No, it's called
opportunity to go in.
parental involvement and transparency. That's what it's called.
Well, we're not going any
So
further.
I would like to,
I disagree.
Dr. Thornton, I would like to know if that technology is available by the next school board meeting. That's what I want to know.
You know, if our children
Is she a
It's not on
parent
the
or
agenda.
staff?
you know,
She's a parent.
No, we can't do that. So anyway, that's my request. The meeting is adjourned.